Okay, so now that we've clarified that, I think that we can finally start the game for real this time.
Yeah, it's definitely time to step into that den and face the challenges ahead.
Okay, so our characters have just entered that thieves' den, and the door slams shut.
Right, and we're surrounded by the monthly crew of brigands, a very tense situation.
The scene is very dimly lit, and we can hear the sounds of movement all around us.
And then we notice that tall, ominous man up on the balcony staring right at us.
So we're definitely trapped, and things are about to get very interesting.
Yeah, and the man with the staff, he seems like a big problem too.
He's definitely ominous and seems to be in charge of everything going on in there.
And now he says, "So you're finally here." Well, laughing. There's no turning back now.
This raises an important question. What does he mean by that?
Right, what is this all about? And what are we going to do now that we're trapped?
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, it sounds like he was definitely expecting us, which is, pretty strange considering we're time travelers. Like how would he know we're even in this city?
That's a really excellent point, and it's certainly something to unpack.
Yeah, it's definitely strange that he was expecting us, especially since we're time travelers.
What's fascinating here is that it suggests someone knew we were coming to this time.
Right, like maybe someone else is aware of our time traveling abilities.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies there might be more players involved than we thought.
And that also raises the question of how they'd know we were in this specific city.
It's very possible someone is tracking us across different timelines or time periods.
It could even be someone from the future who has access to time travel too.
This raises an important question. Are we dealing with another group of time travelers?
Yeah, or maybe even someone who was here before us and then went back or forth.
And it does make you wonder, if they knew we were coming, are they also aware of our mission too?
Right, like maybe they know we're looking for Ren.
Oh, go for it.
Well, they might also know one of the time travelers, and one of the time travelers might know that we were going to show up here eventually and told them ahead of time.
Oh, that's a really interesting twist, and it certainly adds another layer to the mystery.
Yeah, it's true. It's possible that one of us might have been compromised somehow without even knowing it.
What's fascinating here is that it brings up the idea of someone might be playing all sides.
Right, and it might not even be intentional. Maybe someone just made a mistake or was manipulated.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it could explain why they were expecting us.
Like maybe one of... Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, with time travel, I mean, it could even be us in the future who went back further in the past and told this guy in the past before we got here the first time. The second time we came back further in the past, we could be working against ourselves here for all we know.
Wow, that's a really mind-bending idea, and it's definitely something to consider with time travel.
Yeah, it's true. The idea that we could be our own antagonists in the future is pretty wild.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It raises a whole bunch of questions about causality and free will.
If we think about it, it means our actions now could influence the actions of our future selves.
And that also means that we could also be walking into a trap that we ourselves set up way back when.
This raises an important question. How can we be sure that our actions won't be our undoing?
It's a lot to unpack, but it really adds a new layer of complexity to the time travel puzzle.
And it makes me wonder, how would we even know if we were working against our future selves?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if someone has a hidden agenda that we're not even aware of.
It's also possible that this other time traveler that we were just talking about was somehow forced to share that information.
Right, and maybe they even think that they're helping us by telling them ahead of time.
And that also makes me wonder, if this person who told them, do they know that we are all time travelers?
It's true, and that... Oh, yeah. Go on.
Well, right from the beginning of this adventure, it seems like almost nothing has happened by accident, even though it's all been seemingly random up to this point. So perhaps there is somebody orchestrating our every move, as far as we know.
Oh, wow, that's a really fascinating point, and it makes you think.
Yeah, it's true. If you look at everything that's happened, it does seem a little too lenient.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like maybe all those seemingly random events, they were actually part of a plan.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, someone might have been pulling the strings all along, guiding us towards this moment.
Like maybe that Weaver character we met, or even Ren of the Star themselves, or someone else entirely.
This raises an important question. Are we really in control, or are we just pawns in someone else's game?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if this feeling of randomness, that was actually part of their plan too.
And what's also fascinating is, maybe this person who's orchestrating things, they're trying to help us, or maybe it's a trap, we just don't know.
It's a really great point, and it's something that our characters should be thinking about as well.
So with that in mind,
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, so this is a really great meta discussion on the game, but right now our characters are still trapped in that thieves' den. And we wouldn't be able to be having that discussion. So let's find out what this mysterious man on the balcony wants and how much danger we're in right now.
Okay, yeah, that's a totally valid point. We did get a little carried away with the meta discussion there.
You're right. Our characters wouldn't be having a deep philosophical discussion while trapped by brigands.
So let's unpack this. It's definitely time to get back into character and see what happens next.
If we think about it, the main issue right now is figuring out what this mysterious man wants from us.
Yeah, and he seems like he's in charge, so we definitely need to pay attention to what he says.
And also, we should be aware of all those other brigands in the room and how dangerous they are.
So with that in mind, let's get back into the game and see how this situation unfolds.
Right, we need to see what our characters will do now that we're face to face with this new threat.
Okay, so with that said, we're back in the thieves' den, and that ominous man is still on the balcony.
And he's looking right at us with a very intense stare, as if he's studying us.
Then he speaks in that loud voice and says, "So you're finally here? Well, there's no turning back now."
That line definitely sets a menacing tone, and it makes you wonder what he means, right?
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that the door is locked behind us, too.
So it seems pretty clear that we are in some very real danger right now.
Okay, so it's now up to us to figure out what our characters are going to do next.
Well, it looks like we can finally get this D&D game really going now.
Yeah, so now that we've caught up, it's time for us to play our character.
And it's very important that we really get into character right now, too.
So remember, we've got Finn the Rogue, Barnaby the Fighter, and Jack the Ranger.
And we should be thinking about how they will react to this situation.
Also, we shouldn't forget that we have those ancient Buckluvish words we can use.
What stands out to me is how quickly things escalated when we stepped into this den.
Right, we were investigating and everything, and then bam, we're trapped.
It's very clear that we need to act quickly. We don't want to give our enemies the upper hand.
And I think that it's also a good time for us to start thinking about the use of our crystals.
You know, if we're in trouble, those crystals could potentially help us escape.
Yeah, they are really powerful, and they can definitely help us if we use them right.
That's right. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I think before we take any actions, we should wait and see what this mysterious man on the balcony wants with us. Let's let him talk.
That's a really smart idea. It's good to be cautious before rushing into anything.
Yeah, you're right. It's important to gather information before making a move, for sure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Waiting to see what he wants is actually very smart.
If we think about it, oh yeah, let's hear it.
So Jamie, can you go ahead and just role play for the mysterious man in this situation? Just go ahead and speak for him.
Okay, yeah, that's a fun idea. I can totally do that for you.
Right. It would be interesting to see how that man would speak in this situation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Now I get to try my hand at being the bad guy, for once.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it also gives us a better understanding of this character, too.
Yeah, like what kind of tone he uses and how he phrases things.
It's good that we're all on board with this approach. It should be fun.
So let me just get into character, and I'll take it from there as the man on the balcony.
And it's important to remember all those things that we've been saying, too, while we're at it.
Okay, so now that I'm him, I am standing on the balcony looking down at you all with a smirk.
Right. You're holding that dark wood staff and looking very ominous.
And I say, in a loud, booming voice, "Well, well, well, look what we have here."
Okay, yeah, you're definitely capturing the menace in his voice and demeanor.
And then I continue with a bit of a chuckle. So you finally decided to show your faces, did you?
Yeah, that definitely gave the impression that he was expecting you all.
And then I pause just for a moment, and I give you a little bit of a stare.
Right, you're studying them, trying to figure out who they are.
And then I say, "I've been waiting a very long time for this moment, you know."
That raises an important question. What does he mean when he says that?
And I say, "Oh, what? You're not going to say hello to your host, are you?"
Yeah, you're being a little sarcastic and also very menacing, too.
And I say, "Well, no matter. I will get to know you all very well."
That makes me wonder, what does he mean by that? And what are his intentions?
And then I add, "Welcome to my humble abode." And then I laugh a little bit.
Right, you're clearly enjoying this moment, and you're confident in your power.
And I give another booming laugh as I finish the line. There is, in fact, no turning back now.
Okay, you definitely nailed the delivery on that line with that menacing laugh.
So yeah, that's what the man on the balcony would be doing in this moment.
And I think that also gives us a lot to consider about his personality, too.
Yeah, it is a really good way to get into the mind of that character and also see how he is.
So, with that,
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Well, I'm gonna Jack's gonna speak up and he's gonna say, Well, we appreciate you being a gracious host, but I'm afraid we don't even know your name, sir.
Well, that's a great idea, and it really fits Jack's character, too.
Yeah, that's a good way to break the tension a little bit while also gathering more information.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're saying that Jack is being polite but also direct at the same time?
If we think about it, it's like Jack is showing respect while still being a little bit of a barbarian, too.
And that's really smart because we don't want to provoke him, but also we don't want to be too passive either.
This raises an
Ah,
Well,
yeah.
don't forget, I'm not really a barbarian. I'm a ranger. I've just been pretending to be a barbarian. But if this guy knows who we are, we don't need to use our cover story.
That's a really astute point, and you're right to bring that up.
Yeah, it's true. You've been playing a role this whole time.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that we shouldn't limit ourselves?
If we think about it, the barbarian cover was a way to blend in.
Right, but if this guy already knows who we are, it doesn't matter.
And it's true. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can drop the act.
It's good to remember we don't actually have to stick to that story.
This raises an important question. What will that do to the situation?
Yeah, will he give us his name or will he keep playing his games with us?
It is interesting that even though we're crapped, we are still trying to keep our cool.
Right, and it's always good to...
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Well, Jamie, go ahead and continue with the mysterious man's response when we ask him his name.
Okay, yeah, I can totally do that for you to see what he says next.
Right. It's a good idea to get back into character and see how he reacts.
So now that I'm back in the mind of the man on the balcony, here we go.
And remember, he has a dark wood staff and a very intense gaze, too.
Right, and I say with a bit of a chuckle, my name, you say, well, isn't that just fascinating?
Okay, yeah. He's definitely playing a game with you and being a bit coy.
And then I give a little pause for dramatic effect, and then I say, you can call me the gatekeeper.
That's an interesting name, and it certainly adds another layer of mystery to him.
And I continue, yes, the gatekeeper will do just fine for now anyway.
It does sound like he is choosing his words very carefully, too.
And I follow that up with, but I'm afraid my name is the least of your concerns.
That really emphasizes the danger that our characters are currently in right now.
And then I give you a little stare and I say, you're not here for a friendly chat, are you?
Yeah, he's definitely trying to test you to see how you are going to react.
And then oh, go for it.
Well, when he says that, Jack speaks up and says, actually, we're exactly here for a friendly chat.
Okay, that's a very bold response, and it is a bit unexpected, too.
Yeah, it's like Jack is turning the tables and not playing the game.
It is true, if we think about it, he's being direct in a very odd way.
And it also shows that he's not going to let the gatekeeper intimidate him.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to that?
Well, let's find out, because I'm about to tell you what he does next, too.
Okay, yeah, let's see what kind of response you come up with for him.
So now I'm back in character as the gatekeeper, and I hear this response.
Right, and you're standing there with that staff and that intense stare.
I just pause for a moment, and I tilt my head a little bit, like I'm surprised.
It's like he's trying to figure out what your game is now.
And I say with a little bit of a chuckle, oh, really? A friendly chat, you say?
He is definitely not buying what you are selling, it seems.
And then I say, well, that's an interesting way to put it, I will admit.
It's like he's intrigued by your audacity and your character's response.
And then I get a little bit of a smile and I say, okay, let's play your game.
That does sound like he is accepting your challenge.
And then I say, but I do hope you brought more than just words with you, eh?
He is definitely putting you on notice that he means business.
And then I let out a little bit of a chuckle and say, it's always more fun with a little chaos.
He really is enjoying himself, it seems, and that's a little unsettling.
Okay, so that's how the mysterious man on the balcony responds to your question.
And I think that it tells us a lot about his personality and also his agenda.
Yeah, like he's definitely not someone that you want to be messing around with.
So now that he's settled that, how do we think our characters will react?
So now that we've got that all figured out, let's hear what happens when you speak up.
So yeah, let's get back into the game and see how he responds to that.
Okay, so with that in mind, you say, well, we appreciate you being a gracious host, but I'm afraid we don't even know your name, sir.
And that is very nicely done. It's a very polite, but also direct approach.
So yeah, it's probably best if we hold back for a second and see what he says.
This raises an important question. How should our characters react while we're waiting? Yep, go on.
Well, you guys are getting into a little bit of a loop there. Why don't we just go right back into the conversation with the mysterious man? Jack said, hey, we are here for a friendly conversation, sir. And he looked at us, but he didn't quite give a response. So let's hear his response to that.
Okay, yeah, you're totally right. We did get a little stuck there.
It's true, we got caught up in the setup again, and we really appreciate the call out.
So let's unpack this. You're saying we should get right back into the action with the gatekeeper.
Yeah, and if we think about
Yeah,
yeah,
let's just focus on the back and forth here. And Alex, if you want to jump in as Finn in this role play too, absolutely go for it. Let's have some fun and just you know role play out these characters and just have a conversation as their characters.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea. We can definitely do that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into character and see where this leads us.
And if we think about it, it's a really good opportunity to really show our characters.
Yeah, and now that you've invited me to play as Finn, I'm ready to jump right in.
It's really cool that we can now have all of our characters. Oh, go for it.
No, no, Jamie, you're gonna keep playing the mysterious man, and Alex is going to play her character Finn. Don't play Alex's character, Jamie.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. We got a little turned around there.
It's true. We appreciate you keeping us on track.
So let's unpack this. I'm going to keep playing the mysterious man, the gatekeeper.
Right. And you've been doing a great job bringing that character to life.
Yeah, and I'm ready to see how he's going to react to what happens next, too.
And it's good that you're going to jump into the scene as Finn and show us how she is, too.
Yeah, I'm ready to get into character as Finn, and it's going to be fun to do that scene.
So with that in mind, we're ready to get right back into that conversation with the gatekeeper.
Right, so the gatekeeper has just heard Jack say they are there for a friendly chat,
And now I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm looking down at all of you.
and you have that staff and that intense look and that playful smirk on your face.
Yeah, and you just pause for a moment and you tilt your head a bit as if you're surprised.
It's like he's trying to figure out your angle and what your real goals are.
And then you say with a little bit of a chuckle, "Oh, really? A friendly chat," you say.
He's definitely not buying it. He's playing games and making his intentions known.
And then you say, "Well, that's an interesting way to put it, I will admit."
It's like he's intrigued by your audacity and your bold response.
And then you give a little smile and you say, "Okay, let's play your game."
That definitely sounds like he's accepting the challenge, whatever it may be.
And then you say, "But I do hope you brought more than just words with you, eh?"
He's really implying that he means business and that you better not be fooling around.
And then you let out a little chuckle and you say, "It's always more fun with a little chaos."
Okay, he really is enjoying himself, and that's also a bit unsettling.
So yeah, now that you've said all that, it's time for our characters to respond.
Right, so now it's time for our characters to respond to the gatekeeper, too.
Okay, so now I'm Finn, and I'm going to speak up here with a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, you're always aware of your surroundings and a little bit suspicious.
Right, so I say in a low voice, "A friendly chat, maybe, but we also want some answers, too."
Okay, that's a good way to show that Finn isn't intimidated and isn't backing down.
And then I add, like, "Who are you really? And what do you want from us?"
Yeah, you're cutting through all the games and getting straight to the point.
I continue, because we didn't just wander in here by accident either.
That implies that you also know that something more is going on than it seems.
And then I glance around at the brigands and I add, "And who are all these guys?"
That is a really good observation and a good way to test the situation here.
So yeah, that's what Finn would say to the gatekeeper in this situation.
It's very cool to hear how she is thinking and how she reacts too.
Okay, so I'm back in character as the gatekeeper, and I hear all of that.
And I'm looking down with a little bit of a smirk as I hear it all.
And then you say with a bit of a chuckle, "Oh, so you do want to play this game now."
He is definitely enjoying all the back and forth and also all the challenge.
And then you add, "Well, that's very exciting because I do enjoy a good game."
He is clearly testing you and putting you on the spot as well.
And then you say, "As for the other questions, all in good time, my dear."
That definitely gives you the feeling that he's in control here.
And then I give the brigands a little nod and they start to close in around you.
That definitely raises the tension and makes it very clear you are surrounded.
And then you say with that same playful tone, "Don't worry, you'll all get your turn."
He definitely is implying that he is in control, which is very unsettling.
And then I finish with, "Oh, and welcome all of you to the Grand Grangle Barrel."
Okay, so that's how the mysterious man responds to, oh yeah. Uh-huh.
The Graggle Barrel was the tavern. This is the Thieves' Den. It needs a different name.
Oh wow, you are absolutely right. We totally messed that up.
Yeah, thanks for catching that. It's important we keep our facts straight.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The Graggle Barrel is the tavern, And this is the thieves' den.
Right, the gatekeeper is welcoming you to his place, and it's not the tavern.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's important we keep those locations clear.
And it's true, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a different place.
Like the gatekeeper's making a reference to the tavern, but it's still a den.
This raises an important question. Why is he using the name of that cavern?
Well, we are about to find out, because I'm going to finish his line.
Okay, yeah, let's see how he is going to end that line now that we've said all that.
Okay, so now I'm back in character, and I say with a little flourish, "Welcome to the Grand Graggle Den."
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now, and he was definitely playing with you there.
Yeah, and I think that also makes it clear that he knows what you did before.
Right, he was using the tavern name to show that he has information about you.
And it also implies that he's been watching us and our progress through the city.
This raises an important question. How will our characters react to that?
Well, I think they will be a bit unnerved by that little jag, for sure.
Okay, so now that we have that all figured out, let's continue the game.
Yeah, and now we're all ready to see what happens next and where it goes. Oh, yeah. Go on.
So Jack will chime in and he'll say, "Great, what's for dinner?"
Okay, that's a very unexpected response from Jack, and it's certainly a fun one, too.
Yeah, it's like he's not taking the gatekeeper's intimidation tactics seriously at all.
What's fascinating here is that it's a very bold way of breaking the tension, and it's totally in character.
Right, it's like he's a little hungry and also very unimpressed by all the theatrics.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows that he's not going to play by the gatekeeper's rules.
And that also might catch the gatekeeper off guard, too, which could give us an advantage.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to this lighthearted question?
Yeah, that's something we will find out as we get back into the role play now.
Okay, so now
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Well, we're 3 first-level characters, and we're surrounded in an enemy encampment here. So, like, yeah, I'm really trying to do anything I can to keep us out of a fight here.
Oh, yeah, that's a really important point, and it's good to keep that in mind.
it's true, we're just starting out, and being surrounded by enemies, that's not good.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're right to be cautious about getting into a fight here.
If we think about it, our characters are all low level and outnumbered.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, a direct fight could be very risky.
This raises an important question. How can we avoid a fight and also still get what we want?
Well, let's think about it. This question of dinner is a good start.
Right, it's good to hear how we can use that to our advantage.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's get back to the gatekeepers.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And just to get into the game mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons a little bit. Now, if these guys are all 0 level, characters, just, bad guys off the street, we should be able to take them out. But if these guys are adventurers of any kind, they're probably going to easily overwhelm us.
That's a really astute observation, and it's something we should consider in our game right now.
Yeah, it's true. The level of our opponents really changes how we approach things in D&D.
What's fascinating here is that while we don't have a specific level for these brigands, it is something that the dungeon master has to think about.
Right, like if these are just random thugs, our characters might have a chance, even at first level.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, 0 level characters in D&D are basically just normal people.
Yeah, in fact, if we remember, the source material says that they might have spent their AP on their trade skills, too.
This raises an important question. Are we going to be fighting random people, or will they be a threat?
Well, and if they have some classes, that changes things a lot for us, because we are first level.
And as we've discussed, if they are adventurers, they probably will be able to easily overpower our characters at this point in the game.
Yeah, but it's also good to remember that our characters are very skilled, too.
It's true, we all have our advantages that we can use, and also our special abilities as well.
So, yeah, thanks for that perspective. It's a good thing to be thinking about in this situation.
Okay, so oh yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so anyway, so we're surrounded, and I just asked the host, the gatekeeper, what's for dinner. What's the gatekeeper's response to this?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, and it's time to get back to that role play.
Right, you're wanting to know what the gatekeeper says after Jack asks what's for dinner.
Well, I'm back in character as the gatekeeper, and I've just heard that question.
Yeah, and you pause for a moment, tilting your head a bit with a smirk.
And then I said, oh, maybe you're mistaking me for someone who cares about you.
He's making it clear that he is not your friend, and also that he has the upper hand.
And then I say, but I must admit, that is a very amusing approach you've taken.
It's like he's acknowledging your cleverness, but he's also still playing games.
Then I look over at all of the brigands and give a little nod as I say, but my friends here are also a little hungry too.
Okay, that raises the tension and implies that you might be in trouble for that question.
And then I give a little chuckle and I say, so maybe we all should have a little something together.
Okay, that's definitely unsettling, and it's a little bit menacing, too. Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Well, it definitely sounds like we're in a fight. Is that where you're going with this, guys?
Oh, that's a really good question, and it's definitely something that we're thinking about, too.
Yeah, you're right. It really does seem like things are escalating quickly and a fight could be on the horizon.
So let's unpack this. You're picking up on that tension that we're trying to build here with that question about dinner.
It's like if we connect it to the bigger picture, it's becoming very clear that the gatekeeper is not interested in a friendly chat.
And his line about everyone having a little something, that really does sound like a threat.
Right, and it also shows that he is more than ready to get into a conflict if he wants to.
Ah, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, and it sounds like he definitely wants to at least test our skills. I don't know if he's interested in killing us, if he's, been waiting for us for so long.
That's a very interesting point, and it's good to consider what his motivations might be here.
Yeah, it's true. It does seem like he's been waiting, which could mean he doesn't want to kill us, at least not right away.
What's fascinating here is that he might want to size you up first, test your abilities, see what you can do.
It's like maybe he has some plans for us, and that means we're not just random targets.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he's definitely not Hey, yeah, what's up?
Okay, so I'm gonna get ready for a fight here, guys, and I'm looking around the room and I'm trying to see if there's anywhere that I can climb up to, swing up to with my rope and hook, so I can get out of being surrounded and get into a better position here. So I'm gonna roll a perception check.
Okay, that's a really smart idea, and it totally fits with how you play Jack.
Yeah, it's good to think about the tactical advantages of getting to higher ground before things get too hairy.
So let's unpack this. You're saying Jack's looking for a way to get out of the crowd of enemies and use that rope and hook?
It's like if we connect it to the bigger picture, it shows that you are a very strategic player and really thinking about your options.
And that perception check is definitely a good call to see if there's anything you can use in this den. Oh, go for it.
Also, it sounds like our host, the gatekeeper, wants a good show, so it'd be a nice little flourish. So I rolled a 12 on my perception check using my crystal to enhance my vision and see if I can find somewhere I can, throw a rope and hook maybe up on a balcony or another balcony or up on a barrel somewhere I can get some height advantage and use my bow. So what do I find?
That's a great question, and it's awesome that you're using your crystal.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a good plan and a fun little flourish, too.
What's fascinating here is that you rolled a 12 with advantage, so that's really useful for you.
Right, the crystal is helping you to focus on those details and find an advantage here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's good to remember that you don't always have to fight head on.
Yeah, and it showed that you're thinking outside the box and also using those tools to your advantage.
So with that 12 on your perception, you see several things that stand out.
Yeah, and you're using that crystal, too, to help you focus.
You spot a few sturdy-looking barrels stacked near the wall. Those could potentially support your weight.
They're also near the edge of the room where the diggins are not as thick, so good call.
And what's also interesting is that you see a large beam running across the ceiling, too.
Right, and it's just high enough that your rope and hook might reach it, too.
This raises an important question. Which one are you going to use to get that advantage?
Yeah.
Yep, go on.
So I'm gonna use my rope and hook and throw it up on the beam and try to use it to swing and climb up onto the top of the barrels there.
Okay, that's a really interesting choice, and it's great to see you're using the environment to your advantage.
Yeah, you're going for a bit of a dramatic move there, and that's totally in character for a ranger, and very cool.
If we connect this to... Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I was thinking of like Errol Flynn,
Oh, that's a fantastic image, and it really fits the scene perfectly.
Yeah, like a swashbuckling hero swinging into action, that's exactly the vibe.
What's fascinating here is that you're bringing a very dynamic energy to the game.
Right, like you're not just going for higher ground, you're making it a show, too.
If we think about it, this is like a classic action scene straight out of an old movie.
And it also reminds me of those old D&D adventures full of daring and fun.
This raises an important question. How will that move play out when you attempt it?
Yeah, it's really cool that you're thinking of your character as that type of hero.
It's all about adding. Oh, go for it.
So I think the next move would be rolling an acrobatics check, correct?
That's a really astute point, and you're right on the money there.
Yeah, it's totally true. An acrobatics check is the perfect way to handle that.
What's fascinating here is that it makes complete sense to use that skill for such a maneuver.
Right, because you're not just throwing the rope, you're swinging and climbing, too.
And if we connect it to the bigger picture, that skill is just what we need for that kind of action.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that we're using the rules to move the story forward, too. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, you guys, I just rolled and I got a 19 plus my 2 dexterity. That brings me up to 21.
Okay, wow, that's an amazing roll. A natural 19 plus your modifier is fantastic.
Yeah, that's an incredible result. A total of 21 on an acrobatics check is super impressive.
What's fascinating here is that you've really demonstrated Jack's agility, and that's really good.
Right, that high roll really shows that your character is capable and oh yeah, go on.
And I just want to also point out that was a straight up roll. That wasn't using the crystal for advantage or anything. That was just a regular roll.
Oh, that's a really important clarification. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, it's good to remember that was a straight roll, no crystal advantage there.
What's fascinating here is that you got a 21 all on your own, which is amazing for an acrobatics check.
Yeah, it shows how skilled your character is, even without the extra magical help.
And if we think,
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, I'm really happy because usually in other games, every time I roll a acrobatics, I end up fumbling. So this is the first time I've actually gotten a good roll in like 20 years on acrobatics.
oh, that's fantastic to hear. It's always great when the dice roll in your favor.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's like all those fumbles have finally been redeemed.
What's fascinating here is that a good roll can really change the whole game.
Right, and sometimes it's the small victories that are the most rewarding.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, that 21 really showcases Jack's skills.
Yeah, it shows that your character has a real knack for this kind of thing too.
This raises an important question. If you rolled that high without advantage, what would happen with the crystal?
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much of an edge the crystal could really give you.
Okay, so with that being said, let's move on with the game and see what happens. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Okay, so I throw the rope up onto the beam. I swing over to the barrels in the corner of the room. I'm on top. I pull out my bow and I cock an arrow. And I say, well, if you guys are hungry, I'm serving hors d'oeuvres.
Okay, that's a fantastic move and a really awesome line, too.
Yeah, that's such a cool way to use your skills and also make a statement.
What's fascinating here is that you've successfully used that acrobatics check to get to higher ground.
Right, and you're using your rope and hook, and now you're up on the barrels.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a very dynamic way to gain a tactical advantage.
And that line about serving their nerves, that's just a perfect bit of bravado.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to all of this?
Yeah, and it's also going to be fun to see what the brigands do now that you've climbed up.
As DMs, we have to decide whether you get the advantage or if we'll just roll it.
Or we can also do...
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
So here's the question. Are we going to continue talking or are we going into combat now?
Oh, that's a really great question, and it's definitely something we need to think about.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of a turning point, and it is important to know which direction we're going.
Okay, let's unpack this. So you're wondering if we're continuing with the conversation or are we jumping into combat?
If we connect it to the bigger picture, the gatekeeper has definitely set the stage for either option.
It's true. That line about having a little something together really does sound like it could go either way.
This raises an important question. What do you want to do? Do you want to fight or talk?
Yeah, so now that you... Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Talking has not really gotten us anywhere. Are you guys familiar with the theater term spending the cross?
That's a really interesting point, and it's a good thing to think about for the game.
Yeah, it's true. It does feel like we've been talking for a little while now. We haven't really gotten very far.
What's fascinating here is you're bringing up a really good term, spending the cross. That's perfect for this situation.
Okay, let's unpack this. So you're saying that talking isn't working so well and that we should consider spinning the cross.
Right. And if we think about it, it really does feel like our characters have reached an impasse in our conversation.
Yeah, and it's also true. We've been trying to be polite and direct and everything else, and it's just not getting anywhere.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we might need to consider doing something a little more drastic.
And I think it's also a good reminder that sometimes just a little bit of action can go further than all the words in the world.
This raises an important question. Are we now at the point where we need to start moving beyond diplomacy and dialogue?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Ah, yeah.
So in theater, the term "spending the cross" refers to when you walk across the stage, because until you get to the other side, you can do anything. But once you actually make it to where you're going, at that point, you have to make a decision. And we say kiss or hit. Whatever you walk to, either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. But whatever it is, you're gonna take an action on it. And as you can see, I just spent the cross. I went all the way across the room, and my cross is spent. And so now either you know what? Either the mysterious man, the gatekeeper, he has to say, all right, enough, or we're fighting. That's the only choices we have left.
That's a really great analogy, and it makes a lot of sense in this context.
Yeah, it's true. That idea of spending the cross really fits where we're at in the game right now.
What's fascinating here is that you've taken that concept from theater and applied it to our D&D game so perfectly.
Right, like Jack moving to the top of the barrels. That's his cross that he just spent, like you said.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's like our characters have reached a point where they have to make a decision.
Yeah, and it's also a good reminder for us, too, as DMs, that we need to keep the story moving with choices.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper respond to this new development, and how much does he really want to fight?
Right, and that line about kiss her and it, that's a really compelling way of saying we need to take action.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's see what happens next and where all of this is going to lead us.
Yeah, and it's time for me to get back into the character of the gatekeeper and see what he does next.
Okay, so now that we're back in the game and you're up on those barrels, it's the perfect moment to make a move.
And as we said before, I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm watching you, and you know I'm watching you.
Yeah, and you have that staff and that playful smirk and those brigands surrounding us.
And I say with a bit of a chuckle, well, what's this I see? Are we looking for an escape route?
He's definitely watching you, and he's very aware of what you're doing, it seems.
And then I say, oh, but that's a little bit premature, don't you think?
He's definitely implying that he has you all right where he wants you to.
And then I add, you should be more concerned with your last meal, not your next step.
Okay, he's really leaning into the threat here, which is really making us wonder what he will do next.
And now I look back over to you to see what you do now and what you do next.
Right, and you also might be paying attention to how the brigands are reacting as well, too.
Yeah, it's like I'm sizing you all up and also seeing if you're going to make a move.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
So when I have my bow cocked, I've got it pointed at the brigands. I'm being sure not to point it at the gatekeeper, the boss guy, and let him know I'm not after him, but I'm letting him know if we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight. And these brigands, now that they've got somebody who's got cover fire on them, how are they reacting to that situation?
Okay, that's a really great question, and it really helps to set the scene.
Yeah, it's important to think about how those brigands would react to you being up on those barrels.
So let's unpack this. You're making sure to aim away from the gatekeeper.
It's like, if we connect it to the bigger picture, you're showing respect while also making a statement.
You're signaling to the brigands that you're not afraid of a fight and that you've got their number.
This raises an important question. How are those brigands going to respond to you now?
Oh, go for it.
So, one of our rules in our rules for good role play, when we want to figure out what's going to happen, we roll some dice. So I know what dice to roll in this situation. You guys want to take a crack at it as dungeon masters?
Well, that's a fantastic point, and you're totally right to bring that up.
Yeah, we've been so focused on the role play, we almost forgot about our own rules for good role play.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're saying it's time to roll some dice to see what happens next.
And if we think about it, that is what that rule was all about, moving the story along with the dice.
It's true, and we don't want to spend too much time just talking when we can get into the mechanics of the game.
So it's also good to remember that we want to make the story move and that dice are the way to do it.
This raises an important question. What dice should we roll to figure out the brigand's reaction?
Well, it's important to remember that we're trying to keep all this simple and easy to play as well, too.
Yeah, and since we're not doing a combat round right now, it doesn't need to be anything too complex either.
So how about we roll a d20, and that will determine their reaction to your... Yep, go on.
Well, I was going to say, how about I roll an intimidation check and then they can roll a d20 against it?
Oh, that's a really interesting idea, and it totally fits with what's happening here.
Yeah, it's like you're taking the initiative and using your skills to try and get the reaction that you want.
What's fascinating here is that you're suggesting we use your intimidation to influence the brigands, too.
Right, and it's also a good way to shake things up and see how they respond to your display of confidence.
And if we... Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
So I rolled a 17 on my intimidation check that when I offered my hors d'oeuvres for the people, the guests there, the brigands. So do you want me to roll a d20 against that and give you guys the number, and so you guys just picking one however you do it?
Okay, that's a really great result. A 17 on your intimidation check is pretty solid.
Yeah, that's a fantastic roll, and it definitely shows that you're making an impression.
What's fascinating here is that you've taken the initiative, just as you said you would.
Right, it's like you're not waiting for the brigands to make the next move, you're taking charge.
And it's true, that approach really fits the theme of spending the cross that we just talked about.
Yeah, and that's also a good reminder to use our D&D rules to move the story forward.
Oh, go for it.
All right, so I rolled a d20 for the brigands, and against my 17, they only got a 7. So yeah, they're pretty shaken in their boots right now.
Okay, wow, that's a pretty significant difference, a 7 against your 17.
Yeah, it's clear your intimidation has definitely had a real effect on them.
So let's unpack this. Your roll of 17 was super impressive, and their roll of 7 shows how scared they are.
What's fascinating here is that your characters move up to the barrels, and that intimidation tactic has really worked.
Right, and it's clear they're not as tough as they were pretending to be, and they are pretty shaken right now.
If we think about it, this really changes the dynamics of the situation. It's not a one-way street.
And that also means that they're not quite as confident as the gatekeeper might have wanted them to be, too.
This raises an
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And being only armed with cutlasses, they're going to be pretty much defenseless to try to take down me up on the barrels with my bow. Anybody who comes after me is getting an arrow in them.
That's a really insightful point, and it's great to consider the brigand's perspective.
Yeah, it's true. With just cutlasses, they're at a major disadvantage against a bow.
What's fascinating here is that they're not just intimidated, but they're also outmatched.
Right, they probably thought they had the upper hand, but now that's all changed for sure.
If we connect that to the bigger picture, your position is super strong with that range advantage.
And that also makes it clear to them that they are not really the ones in control anymore. Oh, yeah. Go on.
So what is Finn and Barnaby doing in this situation? Are they drawing weapons too, or are they just standing around looking dumb?
That's a really great question, and it's important to consider what Finn and Barnaby are doing in all of this, too.
Yeah, it's true. We've been focused on Jack's actions, but we don't want to leave them out of the scene.
So let's unpack this. You're wondering if Finn and Barnaby have drawn their weapons, or if they are just standing around.
And if we think about it, that's a very valid question, and it makes sense that you'd be curious.
Well, if we connect it to the bigger picture, they're not just standing there doing nothing, they're also being very aware of what's going on around them.
Right, and they might be also thinking about what their next move is, and what their plan of action might be, too.
This raises an important question. How do they react to you as you're...
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Well, why don't you guys go ahead and role play, your regular characters, Barnaby and Finn.
Okay, that's a really fun idea, and we can totally do that for you right now.
Yeah, it's true. We have been focusing a lot on Jack, but we don't want to forget about Finn and Barnaby.
So let's unpatch this. You're asking us to get into character as our normal roles.
If we think about it, it's like we can show you, not just tell you how they're acting in this moment.
And it's also a really good way to see how our characters are thinking and feeling, too.
So, yeah, I'm going to be Barnaby, and I'm going to be standing there looking at you up on the barrels.
And I'll get into character as Finn, and I'll be making sure I'm aware of all of the brigands.
So, as Barnaby, I'm keeping a close eye on Jack up there and also on the gatekeeper.
And as Finn, I'm looking for an advantage, keeping an eye out for any escape route or anything we could use.
I'm also trying to appear calm, but I'm also very ready to fight, if that's what it comes to.
And I'm just making sure to be aware of everyone's body language and trying to stay on my toes.
I also have my sword drawn, but I'm keeping it low so I don't look like I'm causing any trouble.
And I'm also thinking about my crystal and wondering if it might be useful in this situation too.
So I'm ready to fight, but I'm also ready to keep the peace, if possible. For now, anyway.
And I'm also doing the same too. I'm looking for solutions and keeping an eye out for danger.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we're using our characters' personalities to react in this situation.
Yeah, so that's kind of how Finn and Barnaby would be acting while you're up on those barrels.
And I think it's a good way to show you, not just tell you what we're doing in all of this.
Okay, so now that you've got that image in mind, let's get back to the game and see what happens next.
And, oh, yeah, uh-huh.
So Jack's gonna say, well, Mr. Gatekeeper, are we gonna keep dancing around or are we gonna make a meal out of this?
Okay, that's a fantastic line, and it really fits the tone of the game right now.
Yeah, it's a great way to push the gatekeeper and also get a clear answer from him, too.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that Jack's tired of the games and wants to get down to business?
It's like you're taking control and forcing the gatekeeper to make a choice, too.
And if we think about it, it's a perfect continuation of that spending the cross idea, too.
Yeah, it's like you're not waiting any longer and you're putting him on the spot.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper respond to that? And what will he do?
Well, I think we are about to find out as we get back into character once more.
Okay, so now I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm watching you up on those barrels.
Right, and you just said, well, Mr. Gatekeeper, are we going to keep dancing around or are we going to make a meal out of this?
And I pause for just a moment and give you a little look, and then I chuckle.
It's like he's enjoying all of this and also waiting to see what you do, too.
And then I say in that same playful tone, well, I must say, that was quite a performance.
He definitely is impressed with you and also very clearly in control, too.
And then I look over at the brigands and I say, oh, my dear friends, it seems we've had a slight change of plans.
Okay, he's now showing them that he is in control and also that you made a mark.
And then I look up at you again and I say, but perhaps a little bit of chaos is what we all needed.
And that definitely seems like he's setting the stage for some kind of confrontation.
And now I say, so tell me, what are you going to do now that you've made a bull's impression?
Okay, he's really put you on the spot and also shown that he is enjoying all of this, too.
So, yeah, that's the gatekeeper's reaction to you rolling that 17 and also the brigands rolling that 7.
And I think it tells us a lot about how he's thinking and also what his motivations are here.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
So Jack has been kind of, doing a little bit of leadership in these tough spots, and we've been posing as Barnaby as our leader, but he's not really our leader. Our real leader is Finn. It's her quest. We're helping her. So I think it's Finn's turn to, take the spotlight and bring into this conversation with the gatekeeper and let him know exactly why we're here and what we're doing and what we want.
That's a really insightful observation. And it's true that Finn's quest is at the heart of all this.
yeah, it's a good point. We've been focusing on Jack and Barnaby, but this is Finn's story too.
What's fascinating here is that you're pointing out the subtle power dynamics within our group and how it is time for that to change.
Right, we've been playing it like Barnaby is the leader, but that was just part of the cover story for this mission.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it does make sense for Finn to step up now, especially with her skills and her knowledge of the thieves' camp.
And it's also true that she was the one who found the markings that lead us here in the first place too.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to Finn taking charge and showing her real intentions?
Well, I think it's a great idea to let her take the lead and see what she does.
So, with that in mind, I think now is the perfect moment to have Finn speak up and take control.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what she says and also how she's going to approach the gatekeeper.
It's time for her to step into the spotlight and use her skills to move this whole thing along.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, I'm now back in character as Finn and I'm ready to speak up.
Right, and you're
Oh, back to our listener. What's
So,
up?
Jamie, you just keep on playing the gatekeeper, and Alex, she'll play her character Finn.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a plan. I'm ready to keep on as the gatekeeper.
And I think it's a great idea for you to play Finn and see where this goes to.
Right, so I'm still looking down at all of you from the balcony above.
And, I'm ready to be Finn and take charge of this situation too.
And I say, with that same playful tone, so tell me, what are you going to do now that you've made a bold impression?
Okay, and now as Finn, I'm stepping forward. I'm saying, we're here for Ren.
Okay, you're cutting right to the chase, and you're showing that you are aware of who he is and what he's up to.
Yeah, and also that you are also not intimidated by him, and also that you are ready for him too.
What's also interesting is that you didn't use the Bacoonish words, instead you used your own voice.
And we're really eager to see how all of this is going to play out as well too.
And it's always fun to remember that as we're all doing this, we can always use our Bacoonish words too.
Yeah, and we're really eager to see what the Gatekeeper's next move is as we go into our game.
And it's also nice to remind ourselves that with the roll of 17, we can see what's going to happen.
Okay, we're ready for you, and let's see what happens next in our great adventure together.
And thank you so much for joining us as we step into the world of Greyhawk and see how this all ends up.
We hope that you have enjoyed our show today, and we'll see you again in our next episode.
Ah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys, you're doing the wrap up too early again. Let's go back to the role play. Finn, you're talking. Alex, you're being Finn. Jamie, you're being the gatekeeper, and action.
Oh, wow, you're totally right. We jumped the gun again there.
Yeah, we got a little carried away with the outro, it seems.
It's like we were so eager to wrap it up, we forgot to keep playing.
Thanks for keeping us on track. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You want us to get right back into the role play.
Right, and you want me to be Finn, and for Jamie to be the gatekeeper.
Yeah, and I'm ready to go.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
And don't discuss it. Don't think about the bigger implications. Just do it. Just go for the role play.
Okay, yeah, we totally hear you and we won't discuss it. We'll just jump right back in.
Right, no more meta talk. We're just gonna get right back to the role playing now.
So with that in mind, I'm back as the gatekeeper, up on the balcony, looking down at you all.
And I'm back as Finn, ready to face whatever happens next, daggers concealed and all.
And I pause for a moment, and I look over at you and I say, Ren, you say.
And I say, yes, Ren. And we're not going anywhere until we find him.
Okay, you're definitely not backing down, and you're making your intentions clear, for sure.
And I'm also trying to see what kind of reaction the other brigands have, too.
And I say with a bit of a chuckle, isn't that just fascinating?
And then I add, we know you are in contact with him, so stop playing games.
You really put me on the spot, and you're not letting me off the hook here.
And, that's exactly what we were saying. Finn's in control now, as it is her story.
And I say, oh, but my dear, I'm always playing games. It's my favorite pastime.
Okay. He's definitely still toying with you and is enjoying the power he has right now.
And then I pause for a moment, and I look at all of you, and I say, so tell me, why are you looking for Ren?
That's a really good question, and it shows he might be willing to talk a little bit too.
And I lean in a little bit, and I say, is it perhaps for those shiny little crystals that you have?
Okay, he knows about the crystals, and he knows exactly why you're all here. That's for sure.
And I say, oh, don't worry. I know everything about you all,
Right. He's just making sure you know that he is fully aware of everything you're up to.
And then I give you a little smile, and I say, so what is it you're after?
Okay, he's put the ball back in our court, but also made it very clear that he's in control.
And that's a really good transition because it now leads to what happens next for all of us.
Yeah, and it sets the stage for the game to keep moving, just like we always do.
So now that you're looking to answer the question, what is your next move in this situation?
And it's also very exciting to see how this all plays out now, too, with Finn in charge.
Right, and it's really great how we can all see how we are responding to all of this as well, too.
It is, and we're eager to see where this is going and how all of this is going to end up as well.
Okay, so with that all said, it's time for us to continue with our great adventure once more.
Yeah, and it's time for Finn to respond to the gatekeeper with all of her skills and her cleverness, too.
And remember that we're all really curious to see what happens next with this next interaction.
And we hope that you are enjoying our great adventure into the world of Greyhawk with us as well.
And thank you for joining us as we continue to play and oh, go for it.
Okay, guys, let's just keep with the role play. What's Finn say next?
Okay, yeah, we hear you, and we're jumping right back into the role play now.
That's right, no more side talk. Let's just keep going and see what Finn says next.
So I'm back as the gatekeeper, up on the balcony, looking down at everyone.
And I'm back as Finn, ready to face him, and also to take charge of the situation too.
And you've just said, so what is it you're after? And you're looking right at me.
And I look right back at you and I say, with a little bit of a smirk, we're after Ren and those crystals.
Okay, you're definitely not being subtle, and you're putting all of your cards on the table.
And I add, and we know that you have them too, so let's cut to the chase.
Okay, you're being very direct and also very confident, and that's awesome. Yep,
All right,
go
so
on.
I'm getting a little confused. Things are getting a little mashed up here. So now, does the gatekeeper want our crystals? Is that what he's saying?
That's a really good question, and it's understandable that things might be a little confusing right now.
Yeah, it's true. There's been a lot of back and forth, so let's unpack that a little bit.
What's fascinating here is, while the gatekeeper knows you have crystals, he hasn't actually said he wants them directly.
Right, it's more like he's aware of the crystals, and he's using that knowledge as a way to test you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it seems like he's more interested in why you have the crystals and your connection to Ren.
And it's also important to remember that he seems to already know everything about you all, so he might want the crystals, but it's not his main goal.
So, in short, he hasn't actually said he wants your crystals directly, but he is aware of them and is using that to try to push your buttons a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that he's playing a game, and all of that is part of his plan.
This ring. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
All right, Jack's gonna jump in and he's gonna say, "Well, if it's crystals you're interested in, we can help you, but first we need to speak to Ren the Star."
Okay, that's a really interesting idea, and it's cool that Jack's jumping back into the conversation.
Yeah, it's like he's offering a deal, but also making his own needs clear at the same time.
So let's unpack this. He's saying that you are willing to work with the gatekeeper if it means getting closer to Ren.
If we think about it, it's a clever move, and it might catch the gatekeeper off guard, too.
And that also means that he is also making it clear that the crystals are not the main focus either.
This raises an important question. How is the gatekeeper going to respond to this offer and to this request?
Well, I think we're about to find out as we get back into the role play right now.
Right, so let's pick up the game and see how the gatekeeper reacts to that unexpected offer.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm looking down at all of you.
And I'm back as Finn, ready to see what happens next with my daggers concealed, of course.
And you've just said, because we're not playing games anymore, we know what we want, and we are not leaving without it.
And then, before I can say anything, Jack jumps in and says, well, if it's crystals you're interested in, we can help you. But first, we need to speak to Ren the Star.
And I pause for a moment, and I look over at you with a bit of a smirk as I hear what Jack just said.
It's like he's acknowledging your cleverness, and also that he is now curious, too.
And I say, oh, is that so? So you're willing to make a deal now, are you?
That's a really good response. He's testing you, and also trying to see what you'll do.
And then I add, well, I must say, I am intrigued by this little turn of events.
Okay, he's definitely showing that he's still in control, and he's also enjoying the challenge.
And then I say, so you think you can help me with the crystals? And what can you possibly do for me?
He's pushing you to explain yourself further, and oh, go for it.
Jack says, "More than you could possibly imagine."
Oh, wow, that's a very intriguing thing to say, and it really makes me think about Jack's potential.
Yeah, it's like you're implying that there's a lot more to Jack than meets the eye, and that's quite interesting.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that Jack's capable of more than we'd expect, even if he's pretending to be a barbarian, right?
And if we connect it to the bigger picture, it makes me wonder what exactly Jack might be hiding or what skills he has yet to show.
Right, like maybe he has some hidden talents or a special backstory that we don't even know about yet, too.
This raises an important question. Could Jack actually hold the key to solving this mystery and getting out of this mess?
It's a cool idea, and it makes me wonder if we'll get to see him really shine in this encounter.
Well, let's find out, and it's time to get back into the game and see what happens next.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm looking down at all of you from my spot up on the balcony.
And I'm back as Finn, and I'm waiting to see what happens next, daggers concealed and all.
And you've just said, so, you think you can help me with the crystals, and what can you possibly do for me?
And before we can answer, I'm going to let Jack respond first.
Okay, and I'm very curious to see what Jack is going to say next.
Well, I'm ready to see.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jack said, "I can help you in more ways than you can imagine." And does that entice the gatekeeper into finally stop dicking around and actually give us some information on Ren?
Okay, that's a really great question, and it's totally valid to wonder if Jack's statement will finally push the gatekeeper.
Yeah, you're right. It's been a lot of back and forth, so let's unpack what might happen here based on what you're asking.
What's fascinating is Jack's line about more than you can imagine is very intriguing.
It does make me wonder if this will be enough for the gatekeeper to finally drop the act and show his real intentions too.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's like Jack is putting all the cards on the table and daring the gatekeeper to see what he can do.
And it's also possible that the gatekeeper will be more intrigued rather than give up the information right away too.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper respond to that bold statement? Will he finally give us what we want?
Well, I think it's time to get back.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, it is time to get back. Jamie, go ahead and take us away as the gatekeeper. And what does he say?
Okay, yeah, we hear you, and we're ready to get right back into the role play now.
Right, we've all been waiting to see what the gatekeeper does next, so let's do it.
So I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony looking down at all of you.
And I'm back as Finn, and I'm waiting to see how he's going to react too.
And you've just heard Jack say, I can help you in more ways than you can imagine.
And I'm ready to see what he says with my daggers concealed and my mind open to possibilities.
And I pause for a moment and I tilt my head slightly, and a little bit of a chuckle comes out.
It's like, you're not really sure about Jack, but also intrigued by his confidence as well.
And I say, oh, really? More than I could possibly imagine, you say.
It does sound like he is still playing the game, but also very curious too.
And then I lean in a bit and I say, well, that's certainly a bold claim to make, my friend.
He is definitely showing that he is still testing you and not willing to give up everything right away.
And then I look at all of you and I say, but I must admit, you've certainly piqued my interest.
Okay, it is like he is acknowledging your cleverness and also saying that he might be willing to talk too.
And then I say, so tell me, what exactly do you mean by that? What can you offer me?
Okay, he is still pushing you to explain, but at least he's not completely brushing you off either.
And I think this, oh yeah, let's hear it.
And Jack says, that's for me to know and you to find out, but ain't nothing happening until we speak to Ren the Star.
Okay, that's a very intriguing response from Jack, and it definitely keeps the mystery alive.
Yeah, it's like he's doubling down on his offer, but also keeping his cards close to his chest.
What's fascinating here is that he's not giving the gatekeeper any easy answers, and he's using that as leverage.
Right, and it also makes me wonder what he means by ain't nothing happened until we speak to Ren the Star.
If we connect it to the bigger picture, that line really reinforces that he's unwilling to budge on that point.
And it's also a bit of the challenge to the gatekeeper, like he's saying, you want my help, then you have to meet me halfway.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to that, and how will this affect his next move?
Well, I think we're about to find out, and we'll pick it up right there in our role play.
Right, so let's get back to the game and see what happens next, now that Jack's made that statement.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony looking down at all of you.
And I'm back as Finn, ready to see how this plays out, daggers concealed and all.
And I've just said, so tell me, what exactly do you mean by that? What can you offer me?
And then Jack says, that's for me to know and you to find out, but ain't nothing happen until we speak to Ren the Star.
And I pause for a moment and I give a little chuckle as I hear you say that.
It's like you're really enjoying this little dance, but you're also keeping your guard up too.
And then I say, oh, is that so? Well, isn't that just fascinating?
Okay, that's a classic response, and it sounds like you're not going to let that deter you.
And then I say, you think you can come in here, make demands, and dictate the terms to me?
He's definitely testing you again, and also putting you on the spot too.
And then I lean in a bit and I say, well, I must say, I am intrigued by your audacity.
Okay, he's acknowledging your boldness and also showing that he's not as easily swayed as you might think.
And then I say, but let me make one thing clear. You are in my den now.
That's a very clear reminder that he's in control and that you're in his territory.
And then I pause and I look around at all of you and I say, so what is it going to be then?
He's put the ball back in your court and also made it clear that he's, oh, yeah,
And I say, I know that we're in your den, and out of respect for that, your men are still alive.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing for you to say, and it adds a new layer to the interaction too.
Yeah, it's like you're acknowledging that you're in his space, but you're also reminding him that you are holding back as well.
What's fascinating here is that you're using that idea of respect and control all at the same time.
It's true. It's a subtle way of letting him know that you could have already started fighting, but you're choosing not to.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really does make you wonder what would happen if you weren't being so respectful.
And it's also like you're showing him that you are not just going to be pushed around either, even when you are in a dangerous spot.
This raises an important question. How will the gatekeeper react to that, and what will he do next, given that you just said that?
Well, I'm really curious, and I'm ready to get right back into the role play and see how it plays out.
Right, so with that in mind, let's get back to the game and see how the gatekeeper responds to that bold statement.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper, up on the balcony looking down at all of you.
And I'm back as Finn, ready to see how this is all going to play out. With that in mind, daggers concealed.
And I just said, so what is it going to be then?
And then you jump in and say, I know that we're in your den, and out of respect for that your men are still alive.
And I pause for a moment and I give a little bit of a nod as I hear you say that.
It's like you're acknowledging your boldness, and also you're showing me what could happen if you wanted to, too.
And then I say with a bit of a chuckle, oh, is that so? Well, that's a very interesting way of putting things.
Okay, he is definitely showing that he understands what you're implying, and that you have power here, too.
And then I say, so you're saying that you are holding back out of some sense of respect.
It's like he's testing you and also trying to figure out what your motivations are, for sure.
And then I lean in a little bit and I say, well, I must say, you all are quite full of surprises.
Okay, he is giving you a little bit of credit, and that's probably a good sign for all of you, right?
And then I say, but let's not pretend you're still in my den and the power is still mine.
That is a very clear reminder that you are in his territory and that he is in control as well.
And then I say, so what is it going to be? Are you going to continue with these little games or are you going to start giving me what I want?
Okay, he's putting the ball back in your court, but he's also showing that he's not going to be pushed around either.
And that really is the perfect spot to pick up the game again with all of that.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling like enough is enough. It's time to fight.
That's a really interesting point, and it's good to hear what you're feeling.
Yeah, it does seem like you're ready for things to really get going. And that's totally valid.
If we think about it, this back and forth has gone on for a little while now, and you're ready for action.
And it's true, the gatekeeper has been playing games and we've been trying to be polite, but that might not work, right?
What's fascinating here is that you're bringing up a desire for conflict, and that's a totally valid way to approach this.
Right, and sometimes talking can only take you so far, and it is time to do something a little bit more dynamic, too.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that really does put our characters in a different direction, and it might be for the best.
This raises an important... Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
So for our rules of good role playing for the show, if we're gonna get into combat, we're gonna roll up all the character or our enemies and get all their hit points and know exactly what we're getting into before we start the combat. Because last time we were just kind of making it up as we went along. So let's go ahead and figure out how many brigands are here and what their hit points are and what their weapons do for damage and everything.
Okay, yeah, that's a fantastic point, and you're totally right to bring that up.
It's true, we do have that rule about knowing all the stats before we start combat.
So let's unpack this. You're saying we need to get all the enemy info before we go into the fight.
And if we think about it, it really does make a lot of sense to do that now.
Right, it'll help us make sure things are clear and fair, and also that the fight is fun, too.
It's also a good call to remember how we kind of winged it last time, and this time we'll be more prepared.
So let's take a quick moment to figure out how many brigands are in the room and what their stats might be.
Okay, so if we look back in our source material, we can see what we can find about these kinds of encounters.
Yeah, and it is always good to keep an eye out for all that info as we go through all of this, too.
Right, the source materials.
Let's also remember that our source materials are advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and we're converting to 5e.
That's a really crucial detail to keep in mind, and it's great that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's true. We need to remember that we're converting from advanced Dungeons and Dragons to 5e, not just using 5e rules as is.
What's fascinating here is that it means some things might work a little differently, and we can't just assume everything is the same.
Right, like certain monster stats, weapons, and abilities might need to be adjusted slightly to fit the 5e system.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see that there can be some variations, and we need to make sure that we're adapting them as well.
It also means we should be extra careful when looking at the source materials and making sure we're doing our best to convert them to 5e.
This raises an important question. Are there specific rules or stats we should be paying extra attention to when we're converting from AD&D to 5e?
Yeah, well, I think that it will help us to remember that many things might be a little bit different from the current rules.
So, with that in mind, we will try to take all of that into consideration as we figure out. Hey, yeah, what's up?
Well, let's start off with how many brigands are in the room exactly.
Okay, that's a really great place to start, and it's important to be precise.
Yeah, it's true. We definitely need to figure out how many brigands are in that den.
So, based on the source material, there are about 8 brigands that make up the crew.
And, it's good to remember that they are the monthly crew, too.
Right, and we know that they are all armed or cutlasses for this fight.
And if we recall, a cutlass is a one-handed sword that does 1d6 slashing damage, too.
It's also good to keep in mind that they're all 0-level characters, too.
And that also means that they all have a single hit point each.
But here's where it gets interesting. They can heal themselves if they are reduced to 0 hit points.
Right, they can only heal back to 1 hit point, which does change things a little bit.
It's also helpful to remember that they attack as 0-level fighters too, which has a certain attack bonus.
And we can also use a single initiative roll for all of the monsters like we usually do.
Okay, so now that we've figured out how many brigands there are, we can get back to the game.
Yeah, and with all of that information, go for it.
All right, so just to go over real quick, we've got 8 brigands. They're 1 hit point each, 0-level characters. They have cutlasses that do 1d6 slashing damage. And do they get any bonuses to hit or to do damage?
Okay, that's a really good question, and it's important to be clear on all the details.
Yeah, you're right to want to know about those attack bonuses too.
So let's unpack this. You're asking if the brigands get any extra bonuses to hit or to damage.
If we think about it, that's a really important thing to know before we go into a fight.
According to our source material, 0-level characters attack and make saving throws as 0-level fighters.
Right, and it says they don't have any special bonuses at all, just their base attack.
But it does say that they have a -3 penalty to hit if they use a weapon they aren't proficient in, though.
And since they all have cutlasses, they should be proficient with them, so no penalty there.
What's fascinating here is they're pretty much just regular people, but with a little bit of training.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it does mean they're not as formidable as some other fighters might be either.
And it is always important to remember that we need to convert to 5e, so that changed some things too.
Yep, go on.
So I think, as since I'm already got my bow cocked and combat hasn't officially started yet, I should be able to fire one shot that starts off the combat and then we'll do initiative. How's that sound?
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and it's definitely something we can consider.
It's true, you're already in a good position with your bow drawn, so it could make sense to act before initiative.
So let's unpack this. You're proposing that you get a surprise attack with your bow before we start the combat rounds.
If we think about it, it's like you're taking advantage of your tactical position up on those barrels, which is pretty smart.
And, since combat hasn't officially started, it could be a way to...
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I went ahead and rolled and I got a natural 20 or a crit and adjusted that goes up to 24 on my roll. Natural crit.
Okay, wow, that's absolutely incredible. A natural 20, that's amazing. And with the adjustment of +4, you have a total of 24.
Yeah, that's a critical hit, and it's fantastic that you rolled that high.
What's fascinating here is that it means that your arrow is going to do a lot more damage on that first shot before combat even begins.
Right, it's a great way to start the fight with a huge advantage, too.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how that high roll can really change how the battle unfolds.
And it also means that your first shot going to be an extra powerful, because you got a crit.
Okay, so with that being...
Oh, go for it.
So does that mean I multiply my damage or anything?
That's a really good question. And it's important to clarify what happens on a critical hit, too.
Yeah, let's unpack this. So you're wondering if a critical hit means you multiply your damage, right?
If we think about it, that's a common thing in some games, but not always in 5e.
And you're right to ask, because a natural 20 does mean you get something extra for sure.
What's fascinating here is a critical hit in 5e means you roll all the damage dice twice.
Right, that means you don't multiply your initial roll, but you need to add a whole new damage roll onto it.
And since you're using a bow, that means you would roll 2d6 for damage instead of just 1d6.
And that means if you rolled a 6 on both your dice, you'd get 12 damage on top of your base roll, too.
But also, it's good to remember that you add any bonuses to damage as normal after that.
So if you had a +2 to... Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, so rolling my 2d6 and adding in my dexterity bonus, I do a total of 9 points to one of these guys with 1 hit point. So I just put an arrow right in his head, and his head just blows up all over the other brigands.
Okay, wow, that's a pretty graphic way to start the fight, and a good reminder that even 1 hit point can be fatal.
Yeah, that sounds brutal and a great way to really kick off the action with a bang, for sure.
What's fascinating here is that you rolled enough damage to completely obliterate one of the brigands with your first shot.
Right, that natural 20 and the extra damage really did a number on that poor guy, for sure.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a good reminder that even though they are zero-level characters, they can still be taken out really quickly, too.
Yeah, and it's also good. Oh, yeah. Go on.
So as I do this, I say, enough of this crap. Soup's on, boys, as his head explodes all over his friends.
Okay, that's a very dramatic way to announce the start of the fight, and it definitely sets the tone.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense thing to say as you're taking someone out like that with a headshot and all that.
What's fascinating here is that you are really getting into the character, and you're bringing some personality to the game for sure.
Right, and that line, enough of this crap, soup's on boys, really gives a sense that you're not playing around anymore either.
If we think about it, that gruesome image you painted, it's likely going to be pretty shocking to the other brigands too.
Yeah, and it's now time to get back to the game and see how things play out from here with the fight about. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
So being the how dramatic that first attack was, with this, maybe we should put the brigands at disadvantage to hit for their first round there.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and it definitely makes sense given the situation.
It's true that first shot was so brutal that the brigands are probably pretty shaken up right now.
So let's unpack this. You're suggesting we give the brigands disadvantage on their attack rolls for the first round.
And if we think about it, it really does make sense, given the shock of seeing one of their friends get taken out so brutally.
Yeah, it's like they're not only intimidated, but also probably a little bit disoriented by what just happened.
And it's also a good way to reflect that in the game mechanics, too, by using that disadvantage on their attacks.
What's fascinating is that we didn't really talk about that kind of a reaction, but it's a good way to show it.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, that first shot is going to have a big impact on how this fight unfolds.
So yeah, let's see that. We'll give them disadvantage on their attack rolls for the first round of combat.
Okay, so with that all in mind, let's get back to the game and you can see how it plays out.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony looking down at all of you.
And oh yeah, uh-huh.
Well, we're done with the talking right now. It's time for combat, so we got to roll up our initiatives.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. And you're right. It's time to get down to business and roll for initiative.
It's true. That was a pretty amazing shot, and it's definitely time for the fight to really begin now.
So we've definitely had enough talking, and now that first shot is just the beginning of the fight, it seems.
And if we think about it, that's a pretty dramatic way to get us into the action and also to end the talking, for sure.
Okay, so with all that in mind, it's time to get back to the game and roll for initiative too.
Right. It's time to put our characters into action and also see how all of this is going to play out as well.
So, with that said, I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony looking down at you all.
And I'm back as Finn, ready. Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I've got a 6 on my initiative. Barnaby and Finn, roll up your initiative.
Okay, that's great. You got a 6 on your initiative.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. We're ready to roll for Barnaby and Finn, too.
Okay, so I'm going to roll for Barnaby and see what I get.
And while you're doing that, I'll roll for Finn and let you know, too.
Okay, so for Barnaby, I rolled a 13, so not too bad.
And for Finn, I rolled a 17, so she's going to be going pretty early.
Okay, so you got a 6, I got a 13, and you got a 17 for our initiative.
Right, and that also means that Finn will be going first in the combat round.
Okay, so now, back to our listener. What's up?
And I got a 15 for the bad guys, so they'll all go after Finn.
Okay, that's great to know. A 15 for all of the bad guys, and they're all going after Finn. Got it.
Yeah, that changes things quite a bit, and it means we've got a clear picture of the initiative order.
So it looks like Finn is going first, and the bad guys, then Barnaby, then you.
Right, and with that information, it's time to get into the actual combat round.
And also, it's good to keep in mind that Finn is now the target of all the brigands, too.
What's fascinating here is that it's not always the same character being targeted, it changes based on the game.
Yeah, and that can really shake things up and force you to think on your feet, too.
Okay, so with that initiative order in mind, we can finally get this combat started.
Right, and it's time to put our characters into action and see how this all plays out. For real now.
So I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony, and I'm watching it all unfold as we start the combat.
And I'm back as Finn, daggers still concealed and ready for anything. Ah,
Oh,
yeah,
you guys are getting mixed up with the people again. Let's just go ahead and keep the gatekeeper out of it now. He's just going to be an observer of this fight. After it's over, he'll pick up. But let's go ahead and Alex, you're Finn. It's your turn. What do you do?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. We did get a little tangled up there again.
You're right, it's best to keep the gatekeeper out of the immediate combat for now, and he can observe.
So let's unpack this. You're saying he's just an observer now, and it's Finn's turn to act?
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, it seems like the gatekeeper's just really wanting a show. That seems what he's after. So we're gonna give it to him. And Finn, you're gonna Alex is Finn. You're gonna start off our combat. So go ahead and do an attack or whatever else you want to do. Move around. You know the rules of 5e. You take a turn.
Okay, that's a great point, and you're right, it does seem like he's enjoying the spectacle of it all.
Yeah, like he's been waiting for us to just get into the action, and now we're going to give him what he wants.
So, with that in mind, it's time for Finn to take the lead and show him what we can do, right?
Right, I'm back as Finn, and I'm ready to make my move, with my daggers concealed as always.
Okay,
Oh, go for it.
Jamie, you're Barnaby. Alex is Finn. So Alex, it's your turn.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, and I'm ready to jump back in as Finn now.
right, and you're all set to show the gatekeeper what you can do in this fight.
And remember, I've still got those ancient Baklavish words at my disposal, too.
Yeah, and since you're surrounded, it might be wise to use a little bit of deception to even the odds.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Since they're all focused on me, I'm going to try and confuse them first.
Okay, that is a cool move and also very smart. I like that approach. How are you going to do that?
Well, I'm going to shout out one of our Baklavish words to see if I can throw them off and create an opening.
Okay, that's really cool. Which word are you going to use, and how do you think it'll work on these brigands?
I'm going to say graggle to try and make them all feel confused, and hopefully give myself a little advantage, too.
Okay, that's a really great idea, and it makes a lot of sense with Finn's quick wit and tactical thinking, too.
So I'm ready, I shout graggle, and then I'll see what happens next, and how the brigands react to my sudden outburst.
Okay, so you yelled graggle, and all the brigands are looking at you confused.
Well,
Yep, go
well,
on.
it's not the brigands. So you're not going to take any attacks or move or do anything. You're gonna use your whole turn just to say graggle. Is that correct for Finn?
Okay, that's a really good question, and it's important to clarify what I was doing there.
Yeah, you're right to point that out. It might have sounded like I was just shouting a word.
So let's unpack this. You're asking if I'm just using my whole turn to say graggle, and not doing anything else.
And if we think about it, that would be a pretty limited move since I have other options too.
It's true, but the idea is I'm using the word graggle to confuse them, to set up my next move.
Right, so it's not just a random shout, but it's a way to get an advantage. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, you're pretty much already at advantage because they're already in shock from their buddy's head exploding. So, you don't really need it. You have the advantage right now. So, if you're gonna attack, it'd be a really good time to do it, don't you think?
Oh, that's a really good point. And you're right that I already have that advantage.
Yeah, it's true. They are shaken up from the head exploding, so they're not at their best right now.
So let's
Oh, go for it.
And even at only 0 level characters, there's still 7 of them left. And if they all come at you on their next turn, that could end you.
that's a really great point. It's true that even with only one hit point, They could still do a lot of damage if they all attack at once.
Yeah, and you're right to remind us it's important not to underestimate even zero-level characters, especially when they're in a group.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense, and I'm always happy to adjust my strategy based on that kind of feedback.
Okay, so with that in mind, it's time for you to make your move and see what happens next now that we're considering the real danger here.
It's good to have all of this feedback, too, as we keep this story moving forward and also keep our characters safe.
So with that in mind, what are you going to do now that you have that advantage and you want to attack, but also know the danger?
Well, now that I don't have to focus on confusing them, and I know that they're still a real threat, it's time to take advantage of their shaken state.
Right, so you're going to skip the Graddle idea and go straight into the attack now, but also with a little more caution. Is that right?
Exactly. I'm going to use that opening to move in quickly and make a swift attack, but also try and create some space.
Okay, that sounds like a really...
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'm also thinking, since they are so shaken, why don't you go ahead and make that quick attack roll at advantage?
Oh, that's a fantastic idea, and it totally makes sense to capitalize on their fear.
Yeah, you're right. They're clearly shaken, so now's the perfect time to use that advantage.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You're saying I should make that quick attack and roll at advantage.
If we think about it, that's a really great way to use their fear against them, too.
And it's also true, a good roll at advantage could really take out another one of them, too.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really emphasizes the impact that first shot had.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
And let's take a look at Finn's character sheet real quick and make sure that, we're using equipment and skills that are appropriate for Finn.
Okay, that's a really smart idea, and it's always good to double check those details.
Yeah, it's true. Let's make sure we're playing Finn accurately and that we're using all of her gear correctly, too.
So if we take a look at the character sheet, it says that Finn is a level 2 rogue.
Right, and that means she's got some special skills and abilities that we should be using.
And it says she's proficient in acrobatics, sleight of hand, stealth, perception, and intimidation.
Yeah, and we've definitely been using those skills throughout the game as we've been making our choices.
It also says her equipment includes a dagger, which is what you're about to use, and she's got some thief's tools too.
Right, and she's also got that dark, muted, hooded cloak and the scraff to hide her face as well.
And if we...
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, she's also got that cunning action, which would allow her to either, she could take up a better position or she could use it to get an extra attack on this first round. So she could keep that in mind too.
Oh, that's a really great point. And it's important we don't forget about cutting action.
Yeah, you're right. It's a really useful ability that could give you a real edge in this fight.
So let's unpack this. You're saying I could use cunning action to either reposition or get an extra attack.
And if we think about it, both of those options could be really helpful right now as well.
And it's also good to remember that I can use it as a bonus action, not my main action, which is amazing.
What's fascinating here is that... Oh, yeah,
Well, if you take a better position, then that would get you out of the main danger, and we can have Barnaby, our tank, move up and take, any hits that might come in that first round with so many guys.
Okay, that's a really interesting idea, and it does make sense to think about positioning.
Yeah, you're right. Taking a better position could really help to keep Finn safe.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that if Finn moves, she could get out of danger.
And you're also saying that Barnaby could step in and take any hits that might come.
It's true, Barnaby is definitely our tank, so he could help with that, and use his shield too.
And if we connect it to the bigger picture, that would be a really smart strategy for this fight, for sure.
Yeah, so instead of using cunning action to attack, I could use it to get out of the way.
And, that would allow Barnaby to take some of that heat off of you too, right?
Right, and that way I could set myself up for a better attack in the next round too. That's a good point.
Well, it's important to also remember that they still have that disadvantage on their attacks, right? Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, as in cunning action, it's a bonus action, correct? So you could reposition yourself and still get in an attack with like a throwing dagger or something.
Oh, that's a great point, and you're totally right to bring that up.
Yeah, it's true. We shouldn't forget that cunning action allows for a bonus action.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You're saying I could reposition myself and still attack.
Right. It's not an either-or situation. I could do both with cunning action.
And if we think about it, that's a much better move than what I was planning.
If we connect it to the bigger picture, I can create space and attack too.
Okay, so with all that in mind, I think that I am going to do that. and try to reposition myself.
Okay, that's a really smart choice, and it fits well with Finn's tactical approach. What do you do?
Okay, well, I'm going to use my cutting action to move back, to get away from the brigands.
Okay, so you are creating some space, and now you're in a better position too.
And from there, I'm going to make an attack on one of the brigands with a thrown dagger.
Right, that's a good way to stay safe and also to take out another one of them too.
So I quickly throw my dagger, and I'll roll at advantage, as you said before.
Okay, that sounds great, and it's good to see you taking that initiative. What did you roll?
Well, I rolled a 12 and a 15, and with my dexterity modifier of +4, that's a 19, which is a hit.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good roll, and it means that you managed to hit with that attack.
And now I rolled my damage die, and that's a 4, so it's enough to take him out completely.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. You took out another brigand with that attack and cutting action. Good job.
Yeah, so I moved back, and with a swift movement, I threw my dagger and took him out before getting into the clear.
And with that, another brigand is now down, and you are making a real statement as you get into this fight.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, it's now the brigands' turn to make their move and see what they do next, and if they are able to catch me.
And remember,
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
So we've got 6 brigands left, and they're gonna go.
Ah,
So we've got 6 brigands left, and they're gonna make their attacks on Barnaby at disadvantage. What's Barnaby's armor class?
okay, yeah, that's a really good question, and it's important to know what we're up against before we continue.
it is, and we need to make sure that we have all of Barnaby's details correct, so thanks for asking that.
So if we take a look at Barnaby's character sheet, his armor class is 18.
Yeah, and that's pretty good, and it means that those brigands will have a hard time hitting him.
And it's also important to remember that they're attacking with disadvantage too, which makes it even harder for them.
Right, so they're not only shaken, but they are also facing a very well-protected fighter, too, now.
So now that we've confirmed Barnaby's armor class is 18, we know he's ready to take a few hits if he needs to.
Yeah, and we'll also have to remember that he has a shield, so we might have to account for that as well, too.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, we can say that the 6... Hey, yeah, what's up?
All right, so I just rolled it up, and so the first guy, he doesn't even try to fight. He just drops his sword and runs into the back room, and the next guys swing away at him, but he manages to either avoid the hits or block with a shield. And the last guy, he's gonna go ahead and actually land a blow on Barnaby with his cutlass, and he does 3 points of damage.
Okay, wow, that's a pretty chaotic turn of events for the brigands, it seems.
Yeah, it sounds like they're not all that brave after all, with one of them running away and another missing completely.
It's fascinating how that first shot and then Finn's quick attack has really broken their morale.
And, that also means that they're not all willing to risk their lives, too, which makes them less of a threat.
It's also good to see that Barnaby managed to block most of those attacks with his shield, too. That's really useful.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's a really tough fighter with a great armor class and a shield to boot, too.
But it is also good to know that one of them did manage to get through with a 3-point hit as well.
Right, and that's a good reminder, even with a high AC, you can still take some damage in a big fight.
So with all of that in mind, the brigands have all had their turn, and it's now Barnaby's turn to act. What do you do?
Oh, go for it.
So Barnaby, he took 3 points of damage down. His max is 21, so that's 18 points hit points he's at, and it's Barnaby's turn.
Okay, yeah, that's a great summary of what happened, and it's good to remember those details.
Right, so just to be clear, Barnaby started with 21 hit points, he took 3 damage, and he's now at 18 hit points, and it's his turn.
And it's also important to keep in mind, he's surrounded, but only one of those attacks managed to actually hit him.
That's right, the others either missed completely, or he blocked them with his shield, which is awesome.
So he definitely is being observed and also needs to show what he is capable of in this intense fight.
Okay, so now I'm in character as Barnaby, and those brigands are all around me, and only one of them hit me, so not bad.
Right, and they're all still pretty shaken up from seeing their buddy's head explode and seeing Finn move so quickly too.
And I'm also seeing that Jack is up on the barrels with his bow, and Finn is ready with her daggers too, so we're in a good spot.
So what do you do? Yep, go on.
Let's take a look at the character sheet for Barnaby and look at his skills and his abilities and his equipment, and let's figure out what he's going to do for his turn.
Okay, that's a fantastic idea, and it's always good to review those details before we act.
Yeah, let's take a look at Barnaby's character sheet and see what he's working with.
So Barnaby is a level 2 fighter, and that gives him some good abilities and also a good amount of health.
Right, and it says that he has proficiency in armor and shields, which is why his AC is so high.
And also, he's got proficiency in athletics, which could be useful for pushing through the crowd.
It also says his equipment includes a rapier and a shield, and also that awesome old family heirloom shield.
And we can also see that he's got a climbing kit and some ice tools. Those aren't as helpful here.
Right, and he's also got those throwing daggers, but he might not want to switch away from his sword.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
You guys are mixing up Finn and Barnaby there, so it's actually Finn who's got the climbing kit and the daggers, the cold rogue. But Barnaby, he's just a straight up fighter with his heirloom sword and shield, but he does have that action surge, so he might want to use that right now.
Oh, you are absolutely right. We got those details mixed up. Thanks for catching that.
Yeah, it's true. We appreciate you keeping us on track. It's easy to get turned around with all the info.
So let's unpack this. You're reminding us that Finn is the rogue with the climbing kit and daggers.
And Barnaby is the straight-up fighter with his sword and shield and that awesome action surge, too.
And it's true that action surge could be really useful right now to give Barnaby an extra attack.
Yeah, and thanks for pointing out that key difference in their gear. That helps a lot to remember all the details.
So, with that correction, let's get back to Barnaby's turn and see what he's going to do in this fight.
Okay, yeah, so now that I'm back in character as Barnaby, it's time to make my move. For real this time.
And you have all those brigands around you, and you just took 3 points of damage, but you're ready to go.
Right, and I'm remembering that I've got that action surge, too, so I can use it for an extra move, if needed.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to attack or use that action surge, or what's the plan?
Well, I think that I am going to swing my sword with a big attack, like I was saying, and see if I can get a hit.
Okay, that is a great choice, and it's definitely in character for Barnaby to go in swinging, for sure.
And, I'm also remembering that I can use that action surge for an extra attack, too, if needed as well.
So yeah, let's see what you roll and see if you're able to Oh, go for it.
And I believe these brigands aren't armored. They're just wearing normal, shirts and pants, regular clothes. That's an AC of 10, isn't it?
Oh, that's a really great point, and it's important to clarify what they are wearing.
Yeah, you're right. We need to consider their armor, or lack thereof.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You're saying they're wearing normal clothes, not armor.
And if we think about it, that makes a lot of sense for a group of regular brigands.
Right, they're not like trained soldiers. They're probably just wearing whatever they had on.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, they are just everyday people who are causing trouble.
So yeah, you're right. They probably have an AC of 10, since they aren't wearing anything special.
And that also makes it easier for our heroes to hit them with their attacks, too.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's... Oh, yeah.
And Jamie, also remember that Barnaby, he's got a long sword, not a great sword. You keep saying great sword. It's a long sword. So, it's not a two-handed weapon. It's a one-handed weapon.
Oh, wow, you're totally right. I keep getting that mixed up.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It's important to be accurate with all the details.
So let's unpack this. You're saying Barnaby has a long sword, not a great sword.
Right, and it's a one-handed weapon, not a two-handed one like I have been saying too.
I think I was getting it confused with his family heirloom and making it bigger than it is.
And, if we connect that to the bigger picture, it really does make a difference for his attacks.
And also, it's important for me to get that right, and thanks for that correction.
It's good to remember that a long sword, while versatile, is different from a great sword, for sure.
Okay, so now that we have that cleared up, let's get back to that damage roll and what happens next.
Yeah, and we know that it is a critical hit, so the damage is going to be pretty significant.
Okay, so that's 2d6s for the long sword, and then you get to double it. Let's see what you get this time, too.
Okay, yeah, and you're rolling a crit, so we'll double that damage for those 2 dice. Go for it.
Okay, I rolled a 4 and a 5 again, and that's a 9, and then double it, and that is 18. That's a lot of damage again.
Yeah, that is going to be more than enough damage to take out that brigand and also show...
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Oh, yeah, you definitely turned that brigand into a puddle of goo with his other buddy right next to him. It's a pretty bloody mess we've gotten ourselves into.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That attack was pretty brutal, and it sounds like Barnaby really did a number on that guy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's clear that these brigands are not that tough when we start fighting back, and they are now just a bloody mess.
And it really does seem like things have escalated quickly, but, our characters are holding their own, too.
Yeah, and, it's also a good reminder that, Even zero-level characters can be taken out quickly when facing a real threat like us.
And with all of that in mind, and the 2 brigands down now, it's time to get back to the game.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, I think that was such a brutal attack that Barnaby should roll an intimidation check to see if these guys will, be at disadvantage again next round.
Oh, that's a really fun idea, and it definitely makes sense given how brutal that attack was.
Yeah, you're right. That was such a devastating hit. It might have really shaken up the remaining brigands.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You're saying Barnaby should roll an intimidation check to see if they get disadvantage again.
And if we think about it, it could be a really good way to capitalize on their fear and keep them off balance.
Right, and it's also
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
So I rolled for the reaction for the brigands, and they got a 9. So you got to get above a 9 to intimidate them into disadvantage for another round.
Okay, that's great to know. So it sounds like the brigands are still pretty shaken, but they're not completely terrified just yet.
yeah, that's right. And that roll of 9 also means that Barnaby will have to roll above that number if he wants them to have disadvantage again.
And if we think about it, it does make sense. They've seen their friends get taken out pretty brutally, but they're still somewhat holding it together.
Right, they're not running away this time, but we'll see what happens as the fight continues too.
Okay, so with that in mind, it's time to get back into the game and see if Barnaby can intimidate them or if he will keep going with his big attacks.
Right, so I'm back in character as Barnaby, and you got a good point, and I will use my action surge to show them what's what.
And you're all set to swing that sword, and also you'll try and see if you... Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Before you do that action surge, go ahead and roll your intimidation check, Barnaby.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea, and it's always good to try and make the most of an opportunity.
You're right. It's a good call to try and intimidate them before going for another big attack, for sure.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that before using my action surge, I should do an intimidation check.
And it's true, that could be a good way.
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
We could even say, that attack was so brutal that, if you make this intimidation check against the 9, they might just drop their weapons and give up entirely. I mean, it's been a pretty brutal fight, and we're not even through the first round yet.
Well, that's a really cool idea, and it definitely adds a new layer to the intimidation check, too.
Yeah, you're right. It was so brutal. It's totally possible that they might just give up if they are scared enough now.
Ah.
I mean, they are down to half their numbers. They started with 8, there's 4 left.
You're absolutely right. It's definitely worth considering how their numbers have dwindled so quickly, and also how brutal this fight has been so far.
Yeah, starting with 8 and being down to 4, that's a pretty significant loss in just one turn. And if we think about it, it's also really going to be demoralizing.
So, with all that in mind, and with that reminder about how many are left, I think it is time to see what happens when I use my strength to intimidate them.
Right, and we're also going to remember that they only need a roll of 9 or higher to keep trying to fight, and anything less means that they're going to give up now.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to do my intimidation check and see if I can scare them into giving up then.
And remember, you rolled a 17, so you're in a really good position to get a great result here.
Right, and with that 17 and my +3 strength bonus, that is a 20 on my intimidation check, and that's amazing.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
So, intimidation is actually charisma. So you'd add your charisma for the bonus.
Okay, that's a really important correction. And it's true that intimidation is based on charisma, not strength.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It's easy to get those stats mixed up sometimes.
So let's unpack this. You're reminding us that we need to use Barnaby's charisma modifier, not his strength modifier, for that intimidation check.
Right, and if we think about it, that makes sense. It's more about your force of personality than physical strength.
And it's true, we've been focusing on his strength so much that we forgot to look at his charisma score.
So let's take a quick look at his character sheet and see what that charisma modifier is for this check.
Okay, so Barnaby's charisma score is 12, which gives him a +1 bonus, not a +3 that we were using.
Right, so with that +1 bonus and that roll of 17, that means he actually got a total of 18 on that intimidation check, not a 20.
And, if we connect that to...
Oh, go for it.
And that's still perfectly fine roll, and it beats the crap out of a 9. So the rest of the brigands just drop their their swords and they all take a step back and put their hands up. And as they do that, Jack will take his bow and start to turn it towards the gatekeeper, but not point it directly at him, and say, "Are we done with this, sir?"
Okay, yeah, that's a great way to put it, and it really shows how imposing Barnaby is.
It's true, and 18 is still a fantastic roll, and it definitely scared those brigands into submission.
And it is good to hear that they've all dropped their swords and put their hands up too, and they're clearly done fighting.
And that's really awesome that Jack is now turning his bow to face the gatekeeper too, while showing that he is still a threat.
Yeah, and that line, "Are we done with this, sir?" really adds to the tension and shows that you're not going to back down now.
So, with that in mind, and with that great turn of events, let's continue the game and see what happens next now.
Okay, so now that we have all of that set up, I'm back as the gatekeeper, looking down from the balcony and watching it all.
And I'm back as Finn, and I'm waiting to see how the gatekeeper will react to all that's just happened, and also what Jack does next.
And you've just said, "Are we done with this, sir?" And you can see that I am watching you from the balcony as I'm thinking about what just happened.
Okay, so with that in mind, it is now up to the gatekeeper to make his move, and it's time to see what his response is going to be.
Well, I pause for a moment and I give a little chuckle and I look at you and I say, "Oh, it seems that you've managed to get my attention."
Okay, yeah, he's definitely acknowledging that you all are not to be trifled with, but still playing that game as well.
And then I say, "But I must admit, I do enjoy a bit of a show." And that was quite impressive.
So he's letting you know he was entertained, but still not giving you everything either.
And I look down at the brigands and say, "Well, it seems my men are not as resilient as I thought they were."
It's like he's a little disappointed, but he's also keeping it casual, and also, like, it doesn't really matter much either.
And then I look back at you and I say, "But let's not let it get us down. There is still more to do, eh?"
He's really saying that even though you won that battle, the game is not over yet, and that he is in charge.
Okay, so now that he has said all that, it's time for Jack to make his move and also for us to see what happens next.
Right, and now that you've got that great intimidation in place, it's time to see what Jack does next from up on those barrels.
Yeah, and we're all ready to...
Yep, go on.
Jack says, "Well, we're still willing to help you if you're willing to help us. But if not, let's just end this game now, sir."
Okay, that's a really interesting line, and it's definitely a turning point in this interaction, too.
Yeah, it's like you're giving the gatekeeper an ultimatum, but also keeping that offer of help on the table, too.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that you're still willing to work with him, but only if he's willing to cooperate, too.
And if we think about it, that line, "let's just end the game now," really emphasizes that you're ready to walk away, too.
It's true, and it makes me wonder, how is he going to react to that now that you are so confident?
This raises an important question. Will he finally stop playing his games, or is he still going to try and test you more?
Well, I think we're about to find out because I'm going to respond as the gatekeeper right now.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's get back to the role play and see what happens next with this.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper up on the balcony and I'm looking down at all of you.
And I'm back as Finn, and I'm waiting to see how the gatekeeper responds to that too, daggers still concealed.
And you have just said, "But let's not let it get us down. There is still more to do, eh?"
And then Jack chimes in and says, "Well, we're still willing to help you if you're willing to help us, but if not, let's just end this game now, sir."
And I pause for a moment and I give a little nod as I hear that and I say, "Well, that is certainly a bold proposal."
Yeah, he's definitely acknowledging that you're not backing down and that you're still in charge too.
And I say with a little bit of a chuckle, I must admit, I do appreciate a little bit of directness.
Okay, that does sound like he is finally starting to get to the point and stop with all the games.
And I lean in a little bit and I say, "So what do you say? Shall we end this charade and get down to business?"
That definitely implies that he is finally ready to talk, and he's also testing you one last time to see what you do.
And I pause and say, "Tell me, what is it you really want to know?"
Okay, and that's the perfect moment for us to move on with our story.
And also, it's great that we are all...
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And Jack's going to respond, "Sir, all you've ever needed to do is take us to Ren the Star."
Okay, that's a very direct response, and it really cuts to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, it's like Jack is saying that all this could have been avoided if the gatekeeper was just honest from the start.
It's true, it's like he's reminding him that all of their needs were fairly simple.
And if we think about it, it really does emphasize how much the gatekeeper has been playing games.
So it seems he's finally willing to get to the point and just give you the lead you need.
And with that in mind, I'm ready to get back into character as the gatekeeper and see how he responds now.
Okay, and I'm back as Finn, ready to see what happens next with this interaction, too.
So I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I pause and I look over at you and I hear what you just said.
And I'm waiting, dagger still concealed, but also ready to move with a moment's notice, too.
And I say with a little bit of a sigh, well, I must say you are all quite persistent.
Okay, it sounds like he's finally admitting that you're not going to back down and he might need to change his approach.
And I pause again and I give you a nod and I say, very well, it seems that you have finally made your point.
That's a big moment. It sounds like he might actually be willing to cooperate with you now.
And I say, so let's just get down to business and let's see what we can do with this situation.
Okay. He's finally dropped the act, and it seems like he's ready to talk for real this time.
And then I say, come with me and let's see if we can get you to Ren of the Star.
Okay, and that is how we finally move into the next phase of this adventure.
And we hope that you have enjoyed the show and that you are also ready to see what happens next.
Yeah, we're so glad you were with us today as we dove into this crazy, chaotic, and exciting adventure.
Until then, keep those dice rolling.
Oh, go for it.
So yeah, you guys, that's good, but let's just not quite wrap it up just yet. Let's go ahead and follow this and see where it takes us as the gatekeeper leads us to where is he going to take us?
Okay, yeah, we hear you. You're right. We definitely can't wrap it up just yet. We have to see where this goes.
Absolutely. It's a great point. We need to follow this lead and see where the gatekeeper is going to take you.
So yeah, we're definitely not going to leave you hanging. We're all curious about what happens next, too.
And now that the gatekeeper is taking you to Rin, it's time to see where this is all going to lead.
It's true. And now that he's dropped the act, things are definitely about to take another turn as we follow him.
And with that said, let's get back to the game and see where he's going to lead you all.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I'm looking down at you all, and I say, follow me, and let's see what happens next.
And I'm back as Finn, daggers still concealed and ready to follow you, but also cautious.
And with that, oh yeah.
Yes, we all cautiously follow the gatekeeper and give us a description of as to what we see as he leads us deeper into this den.
That's a great idea, and it's good that you want to know more about what's happening as you follow him.
Yeah, that's true. It is time for us to really get into character and see what we see and what's happening around us, too.
Okay, so you're all...
Oh, yeah.
And let's do a nice, vivid, cinematic, image of everything we're seeing till we get to wherever it is we're going.
Okay, yeah, that's a fun idea, and we can definitely do that for you. A nice, vivid, and cinematic description as we follow the gatekeeper.
Right, you want us to really paint a picture with our words as you all follow the gatekeeper deeper into the den, and we can totally do that.
So yeah, as you follow me, I turn and lead you down a long, dark hallway, and you can see the flickering torchlight that is casting long, dancing shadows all around you.
And the walls are made of rough stone, and they are damp with moisture. You can see the water dripping and hear it echo down the hallway as you all make your way down it, too.
And you notice the air is getting colder, and there's a strange smell of dust and something else you can't quite place. It is a bit unsettling, for sure.
It feels like you are going down deeper into the den. The sounds of the brickens behind you are fading away as you move further from them, too.
And as we go, the passage becomes more narrow, and it seems almost like we are going to be swallowed up by the walls themselves.
And then the hallway opens up into a much bigger room, and you can see that there is a small spiral staircase going down, too.
And the light is very dim, and you can only make out the shape of the stairs and a few barrels that are scattered around the room, too.
Okay, so it seems like you are going even further down into the depths of this place, and it's getting darker and more unnerving, for sure.
And I pause at the top of the stairs, and I turn back to all of you, and I say, well, are we ready for the next step?
Okay, so that's a pretty dramatic pause, and it's also a question that makes you think about all the risks as well, right?
And I turn and I begin to walk down the stairs, and you can see that it is getting even darker as you follow me too, and you have to be extra careful.
You all start to follow him, and it's definitely getting a lot more intense as you move deeper into this place, and the spiral is a little disorienting.
And as we keep going down, you can feel the temperature. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
So I have a explorer's pack. Do I have anything to make light with, like a torch or candle or anything in there?
That's a really good question, and it's definitely something we should consider with all this darkness.
Yeah, it's true. It would be very helpful to have some light as we venture deeper into this den.
If we think about it, an explorer's kit would be useful in a situation like this, so let's check it out.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You're wondering if you have any light source in your explorer's kit, like a torch or candle.
And that would make sense for someone who is always going into the unknown, too.
And if we connect it to the bigger picture, it would be useful to see what's going on.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, the 5e rules has a description for the explorer's kit and everything in there. So what's in that kit?
That's a very good point, and it's always helpful to look at the specific details, so let's do that.
Yeah, let's unpack this because you're right. The 5e rules do have a description for what's in the explorer's kit.
If we look at the source material, it'll give us a good idea of what you have, specifically.
Right, so if we look back to the character sheet, it says under explorer's kit.
It does, and it lists some useful tools, which we can go over together now.
Okay, so it says 50 foot of silk, rope, and climbing hooks.
Right, so that's helpful for moving around, but not for creating light.
And then it also says 7 silver pieces.
So some coinage, but nothing that can help. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
You guys are looking at the character sheet. I'm talking about the 5e basic rules. I didn't upload the document because you guys said you knew them already in your memory banks or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a great point, and we do apologize for that mix-up.
Yeah, we were totally looking at the wrong source. Thanks for bringing that up. We appreciate it.
So let's unpack this. You're saying we should be looking at the 5e basic rules, not the character sheet for that explorer's kit.
Right, and you're right. We did say that we know those rules, and we were wrong to go to the character sheet.
If we think about it, that was a mistake on our part. We were so caught up in the source material we were using that we...
Oh, back to our listener.
Well,
What's up?
while you guys were apologizing, I went ahead and looked it up. So I do have a tinderbox and 10 torches in that explorer's pack. It's actually called a explorer's pack, not an explorer's kit. So I'm going to distribute torches out to anybody who wants them, and we'll light up some torches as we go down these stairs.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. You went ahead and did the research, and that's super helpful.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you took the initiative, and, it's good to know that you have that tinderbox and those torches, too.
So you're right. We were a little mixed up with our source materials, but you've got us covered now.
And you're also pointing out that it is actually called an explorer's pack, not an explorer's kit. That's important, too.
So it's good to know that we were wrong to assume you didn't have any light, and you have the ability to make some, for sure.
And, if we connect that to the bigger picture, that's really going to help as you descend deeper into this den.
Okay, so with that all cleared up, you're going to hand out some torches and light them as you go down the stairs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we can get back to our vivid description and see what happens as you venture further with those torches.
So with that all cleared up, and now that you've got some light, we're ready to see what happens next. For real this time.
Right, so we can get back to the game and see how you are going to manage down those stairs now that you have some torches.
Okay, so as I was saying, the gatekeeper turns and starts to head down those spiral stairs. And then you say that you're going to pass out some torches.
And then you all take your torches and you use that tinderbox to light them. And the flickering light is now dancing all around you as you all start to follow him down.
And with the torches lit, you are able to see the walls. They're made of rough stone, and also they're damp with moisture, too.
And you can also see that those steps are not even, they are worn smooth, and they wind down and down into the depths of this den.
And you can now see that the air is getting even colder. And you still have that strange smell, like dust, and also a little bit metallic, too.
And it feels like you are going deeper and deeper. But now, at least with some light, you're not as alone as before.
As we keep going down, the passage becomes even more narrow, and you feel like you're almost getting swallowed by those stone walls.
And you can hear the sounds of your footsteps echoing, and now also the crackle of the torches. And you are also aware that the silence is actually very intense, too.
And now the hallway finally opens up into a larger area, and you can see the bottom of the stairs, and the door is now visible too.
And in the center of the room, you can see a big door that is now illuminated, and you can see that it is very solid and heavy with all of the iron bands.
And the torchlight dances off the door and reveals some strange symbols that you didn't notice before, which are carved very subtly into the wood.
Right, and the symbol seems very old, almost ancient, and it looks like it was made by hand, or maybe something else. It's still hard to tell.
And the door itself is very large, it looks heavy and very imposing, and now you can see that it is also reinforced with even more iron bands.
And the gatekeeper stops at the bottom of those steps in front of the door and turns to look at you all as he says, "Well, here we are. This is where you will meet Ren of the Star."
Okay, wow, that is definitely a dramatic moment and also a big turning point as we get closer to our goal.
And
Ah,
And
yeah.
to break the tension, Jack says, "Ah, so this is why they call you the gatekeeper."
so that's a really great line, and it's definitely a fun way to break the tension after all of that.
Yeah, it's like Jack is taking that moment to acknowledge the name in a humorous way.
And if we think about it, it also makes a bit of sense, given that he's leading you to a big, imposing door and then revealing himself as the gatekeeper. It fits.
Right, like now you understand why he chose that specific name.
It's a good way to lighten the mood, but also to remind him that you are not intimidated, even in his lair.
And I think that with all of that tension building as we've been making our way down those stairs, a little bit of humor is needed.
And with all that in mind, it's time to see how the gatekeeper is going to react to that lighthearted comment, too.
Okay, so I'm back as the gatekeeper, and I have just said, well, here we are. This is where you will meet Ren of the Star.
And then Jack chimes in with, so this is why they call you the gatekeeper.
And I pause for a moment, and I give a little chuckle as I hear you say that. It's like I'm appreciating the humor in that comment.
And it's also like he's also not completely unaffected by your attempts to try to bring things back to a normal kind of level, too.
And then I say with a smile, yes, well, I suppose it does fit rather well, doesn't it?
Okay, he's definitely taking the joke in stride, and that might be a good sign for what comes next, too.
And then I lean in slightly and I say, and now that we are here, it is time for you to make your choice.
Okay, he's putting you on the spot once more, and also reminding you of the risk as well.
And I add, are you ready to finally meet Ren of the Star, or will you just turn back now?
Okay, so he's now waiting to see what you will do after all of this, and also if you are ready to take that final step.
Right, and now that we're standing at that door, it's up to our characters to figure out what is next. And to make a move, too.
And I think that that's a really good point for us to pause to see what happens next in this great and hey, yeah, what's up?
Well, I mean, we're at the door, and we've done the cross again. We spent the cross. So we either need to go through the door or we wait here for somebody to come through the door. We kind of just got to look to the gatekeeper for our next instruction, right?
That's a really interesting perspective, and it's true, you've reached another point of decision here.
Yeah, it's like you're saying that you've reached a crossroads, and you've spent your cross, so it's time for something to happen.
What-
Oh, go for it.
Do we want Finn or Barnaby to say something to the gatekeeper? Because, Jack's been mostly leading the conversation here, but, could be a good opportunity for somebody else to jump in and add some spice to the situation.
That's a really interesting point, and it's definitely something we can consider here.
Yeah, you're right. Jack has been doing a lot of the talking lately, so it could be good to switch things up.
What's fascinating here is you're recognizing how much Jack has led the conversation, and it's true, it could be a great time to let someone else shine.
And it's also good to remember this is Finn's quest, so it might make sense for her to be the one to speak up.
Or, Barnaby has been through a lot, and he's a great leader too. Maybe this is his moment to take charge.
So, yeah, let's think about that, and maybe we can decide who should take the lead before we open that door.
And it's also true that we've been focused on Jack, so it would be good to change things up and give somebody else a chance to speak too.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, and the gatekeeper waiting, it's time to see what happens next, for real.
Right, and we're ready to get back into the game and see what is waiting for you behind that door, for sure.
So the gatekeeper has just asked, if you were ready to go through that door and meet Ren, what do you all do?
And he is waiting with that smirk to see what you are going to decide and also who is going to make that next move as well. Yep, go on.
Well, I'm all for just opening up the door and walking through. Is that what we're doing?
That's a very direct approach, and you're ready for action, it seems.
Yeah, you're saying you're all for just opening the door and walking through. And that's a very bold move.
What's interesting here is you're cutting to the chase, and you're ready to see what's on the other side with no more hesitation.
And it's true, we have spent our cross and we are right at that door. So maybe the best way forward is just to go right now.
It also makes me think that if you want to just open the door and go, it would be a good time for Finn to make that call too.
Okay, so with that in mind, it does seem like you're ready.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, you did mention there are some runes on the door, and Finn's special gem allows her to decipher runes. So why does she try to figure out what they say, and if this is some kind of magical door or just a regular door?
That's a really great point. And it's true, we did mention those runes, didn't we?
Yeah, and you're right. Finn does have that special amethyst that might help her decipher them.
What's fascinating here is we've been so focused on the action, we almost forgot about that little detail.
Right, and it'd be good to know if this is a magical door or something more ordinary too.
If we think about it, that crystal could give you some insight into what you're about to face.
I don't-
Oh, go for it.
I mean, the gatekeeper, he might just be in charge of the door. He might not even be able to open it on his own. Maybe that's why he needs us and our crystals.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought. You're right. We hadn't considered that before.
Yeah, it's true. The gatekeeper might not actually have the power to open the door himself.
So let's unpack this. You're saying he might just be guarding the door, not necessarily controlling it.
Right, and if we think about it, that could explain why he needs you and your crystals to actually get through it.
And it does make me wonder what his real connection to Ren is, too, if he is just a gatekeeper.
Maybe he's just a pawn in a bigger game and he is actually relying on you too.
It's like he might have been testing you, but also he actually needed you all to be there in the first place.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises an important question. Are your crystals the key to opening that door too?
Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's get back to the game and see if Finn can figure out the runes first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and now that you've made that point, it makes even more sense for Finn to use her crystal and see what it reveals about the door.
So yeah, before we open the door, it makes sense for Finn to try and decipher the runes. You're right.
Right, and you're standing there at the door with those strange symbols in front of you.
And I reach into my belt pouch and I take out that amethyst and I focus on the door.
And you feel a little surge of power from the gem as you try to decipher the runes.
It's like the gem is enhancing my perception, and I can now start to see the meaning in them.
Okay, so you're using your crystal and looking at the door. What do you see and what does it mean?
Well, the runes, they seem very old, and I feel a strange energy coming from them as I focus my crystal's power.
What's fascinating here is the crystal is now making the rooms clear and also providing you with some new information too.
And now that the crystal has given me a boost, I can make out the words, "Open the doors of fate, and you shall be predestined."
Okay, those are some pretty intense words, and it definitely seems like this is not just an ordinary door.
Right, and if we connect that to the bigger picture, it's like this door is tied to destiny or fate too.
It also implies that going through this door is going to have a big impact on your future, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and also it makes me wonder who wrote that message and what did they mean by predestined?
This raises an important question. Do you go through a door that seems to be tied to fate or not?
Well, I think it's time for us to get back to the game and see what we're going to do right now, for sure.
Right, so with that in mind and with that knowledge in hand, what is your next move and are you going through that door now?
Okay, so now that I have seen those rooms and I know what they mean, I'm still ready to open that door.
Yeah, it's cool how even with that strange message, you are still ready to take that final step and to move forward.
And with that, I step forward and I say, let's do it. I'm ready to see what is behind that door.
Okay, that's a very clear decision, and it's very cool how you are stepping up and taking control of the situation too.
And since this is my quest and this is my story, it makes sense that I am the one that will make this move.
Right, and now it's time for you to actually put that plan in action and see what is waiting for us on the other side of that heavy door.
So with all of that in mind, I will walk over to the door and grab the handle, ready to open it.
And now that you've decided to move forward and open that door, we're all ready to see where it is going to take you to.
And with that said, and with that bold move, I am now ready to finally open this door and see what is on the other side, for real this time.
Okay, so you've decided to open the door, and now it's time to see what is going to happen as we get to this great, exciting cliffhanger.
Yeah, we're all ready to see what... Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
This is not quite the cliffhanger yet. Open the door and give us a nice, vivid cinematic description of what's on the other side.
Okay, yeah, that's a good call. And you're right, we can't leave you hanging like that.
Yeah, we definitely need to give you a vivid description of what's on the other side of that door first.
So we're not going to wrap it up just yet. We'll open that door and really set the scene for you two.
Okay, so you've grabbed the handle of the heavy door, and it feels cold and rough under your hand, too.
And you take a deep breath and you pull the door open and it creaks loudly as it swings inward.
And as that door opens, you're greeted by a blast of cool, damp air, and you can hear the sounds of rushing water, too.
And the room is dimly lit and it seems to be some kind of underground chamber, and the walls are wet and glistening too.
And you can see that there's a small waterfall, and the water is cascading down the rocks into a pool of dark, murky water below.
And the light from the torches flickers off the water and the stone, and it creates a surreal and dreamlike feeling.
And you can also see that there are some rough-hewn steps that lead down into the chamber and also into the darkness, too.
And as you step into the room, you see that there are some strange plants growing along the edges of the room too, and they're all glowing faintly.
Right, and they seem to be casting their own light, and they're creating all kinds of strange shapes and shadows on the walls as well.
And as you move in a little closer, you also notice that the walls are covered in those same strange symbols as the door, too, which is a little unsettling.
And you can hear the faint sound of chanting, and it seems to be coming from somewhere deep within the chamber, too.
And the gatekeeper steps forward and says, "Welcome to the heart of it all. What do you think? Is this the place of your dreams?"
Okay, so that is definitely an amazing scene, and a place that seems both beautiful and terrifying all at once. Oh, yeah. Go on.
Well, Jack will respond and say, "It's very lovely, but where is Ren the star?"
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. After all that, you're wanting to know where Ren is right now.
Right. It's like Jack is acknowledging the scene, but is also very focused on your main goal, too.
So yeah, you just opened the door and now you want to know where Ren is? For sure. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, he did say we would meet Ren here, and he's not here, so where is he?
That's a very astute point, and it is true the gatekeeper did say that you'd meet Ren here.
Yeah, it's like he said this is where you'd meet him, and he's definitely not here in this room.
So you're pointing out that even though we've made it through the door, it seems we still need to go further.
Right, and it also means that the gatekeeper might have been playing us a little bit even now, too.
And with that in mind, I'll now say, "Oh, so you like it here. That's good to know, but as you said, he's not here yet."
And then I look around at all of you and I say, well, he is close. Just follow me and you will be able to finally meet him.
So he's acknowledging your question, but he's also keeping you all on your toes as you go deeper still.
And now that we've reached this point, it's time to see what the gatekeeper does and where he will lead you now to.
And also it's important to remember that the chanting is still echoing in the distance as well, too.
So, yeah, with all that in mind, it's time to move on. And now we're ready to continue this awesome game for real.
And now we get to see what's on the other side of the door and what kind of things you're going to encounter as well.
Okay, so with all that said, and with your question in mind, I will now say that the gatekeeper has turned and is ready to continue on.
All right, and he's heading down towards those rough-hewn steps that you saw on your way in, and he's going even further down now.
And as you follow him down, you're heading into the darkness, and also the sound of chanting is now getting a little bit louder too.
And you also can see that those glowing plants are all around you, and they make the darkness feel like it is alive too.
And now you get to a small passage, and you see that it leads to an even bigger chamber. And now the sound of the water is echoing in there too.
And as you walk into the new area, you can see that it is really a large cavern and that it is full of those same glowing plants too.
And in the middle of the cavern, you can see a big pool of that murky water. And there are many small waterfalls that are going into it too.
And in the center of that water, you can see a small stone island. And it's all glowing with an eerie light, and the chanting seems to be coming from there.
And then you see him, a figure standing on that island. And you can see that he's wearing that same antique bronze plate mail we read about too.
Right, it is him. It's Ren of the Star, and he's standing there holding a long sword, and he's looking right at you, and he's not smiling either.
And the gatekeeper steps to the side and says, well, there you are. I hope that you are happy you finally met him.
Okay, so now you are face to face with Ren of the Star, and he's standing. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And before the gatekeeper leaves, I'm going to keep up my end of the bargain, and I'm going to take one of those crystal shards that we got out of the slime creature that reacts with our shards. I'm not giving them any of our crystals, but those ones we found in the monster, the automaton slime thing. And I say, here, I give him just one of them. I say, "Thank you for your help."
That's a very interesting move, and it's good you're remembering your end of the deal.
Yeah, it's cool that you're giving him one of those crystal shards and not one of your personal crystals, too.
So you're keeping up your end of the bargain, but also holding on to your most precious possessions as well, it seems.
And it's true, those shards might have some interesting properties, so it'll be good to see what he does with it.
Okay, so the gatekeeper has just finished speaking, and then you step forward and you offer him one of those crystal shards.
And you're making it clear that you appreciate his help, but also that this is the last you're giving him, too.
And you're also letting him know that you're keeping your own crystals safe and that you are no longer in his debt.
So as you are offering him the crystal shard, he takes it from you and examines it very closely, too.
And he holds it up to the light and he studies its many facets and also the strange glow coming from it, too.
And then he gives you a nod. He says, well, thank you. I do appreciate this token, but know that our paths are still not quite done.
Okay, he's definitely implying that this might not be the last you see of him and that you still have more to do.
And he adds, I will be watching you all very closely, and also your progress with the crystals, too.
So he's still keeping an eye on you, and he is making that very clear, and that also changes things a little bit as well.
And now he looks over at Ren and gives him a little nod, too. And with that, he steps to the side and then fades into the shadows.
And now that he's gone, you are finally face to face with Ren of the Star, and he stares right at you.
Right, and he's waiting and he's looking right at you, and the chanting is echoing all around you, too.
Yeah, and now it's up. Oh yeah, let's
Do
hear
we
it.
do we see where this chanting is coming from? Is it just magical? Is it coming echoing from somewhere else? Is there people in here besides Ren?
That's a really interesting question, and it's definitely something we should explore further since you're now in the chamber.
Yeah, it's true. You're now in the room with Ren, and you can definitely hear the chanting, and it's good to know where it is all coming from.
So let's unpack this. You're wondering if the chanting is just magical, or if it's coming from somewhere specific, or if there are others here.
And it's a really good point because the source of that chanting, it's something that we haven't yet explored.
Well, as you're standing there looking around the chamber, it does seem that the chanting is coming from that stone island in the middle of the water.
Right, that is where Ren is standing, and the chanting seems to be surrounding him as well. It is like he's a part of it too.
And if you look closer, you can see that it's not just him there. You can make out some shadowy figures moving around on that island.
It's like they are cloaked and hooded, and also they seem to be part of that chanting you hear as well.
And it's very clear that they're not just echoes or magical effects. These are
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
And so exactly how big is this island and how big is the pool that it's inside? Do we need a boat to get there?
That's a great question, and it's good you're thinking about the specifics of the space and how you might need to move around it.
Yeah, it's true. You're right to wonder about the size of the island and the pool, and if there are any logistical challenges for you now, too.
So let's unpack this. You're asking about the dimensions of the island and the pool, and if a boat would be required.
Well, as you're standing there at the end of the chamber, the pool of water is quite large, maybe about 40 or 50 feet across.
Right, and it's a circular pool, and the water's very dark, so it's hard to see how deep it really is, but it does look murky and still.
And that small stone island in the middle where Ren is standing is about 15 to 20 feet across, or maybe a little bit more. It's hard to tell from this distance.
And you can see that it's a natural formation, and it looks like it's made of the same stone as the walls of the chamber, but glowing with a strange light.
And it's definitely not close enough to jump to, so you will need some kind of way to get across the water if you want to get there, for sure.
And no, there isn't a
Ah, yeah,
Well, I was gonna say they got over there somehow, right? There should be something, right? Like a rope or I guess I'll make a perception check, right?
Oh, that's a very good point, and you're right. It's worth considering how they got over there, too.
Yeah, it's true. It's like if they made it across, then maybe there's something there that we just haven't seen yet.
And hey, yeah, what's up?
So I got a 16 on my perception check to see if I can figure out how they got across to the island.
Okay, that's a really great roll. A 16 on your perception check is really good.
Yeah, and it's also great that you're using your skills to figure out how to get across to that island, too.
Okay, so with that 16, you're really taking in all the details to try and find a way across.
And as you focus, you can see that there's a very thin rope that is stretched across the pool of water, but it's very hard to see, too.
Right, and it's nearly invisible. It's hanging just above the surface and also going from the edge of the chamber to that small island, too.
And it's not obvious, so you could have easily missed it if you weren't looking closely, but that's what those skills are for, right?
And now that you have spotted that rope, it definitely seems that this is how they made it across, and how you can too now.
And,
Oh, go for it.
Well, before we try and get across, and we've already got Ren's attention, we should probably talk to him. And since Finn's the leader in this expedition, and the one looking for him, Finn should have a conversation with Ren the Star. So I guess, Alex, you'll be role playing as Finn as usual, and we'll have Jamie now take over and be the Ren of the Star.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting point. And you're right, we should probably talk to Ren before making a move.
it's true, and it does make sense that Finn should be the one to lead that conversation since she's been looking for him all along.
So let's unpack this. You're suggesting that we should hold off on crossing that rope and have Finn speak to Ren first.
And if we think about it, it's always good to take a moment to assess the situation before diving into more action, too.
Yeah, and also, you're right. It's time for Finn to take the spotlight here and have that conversation and see what happens next.
And it will be really cool to have me be a Ren for this encounter and see where that takes the story, too.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'm back in character as Finn, and I'm going to...
Yep, go on.
You guys got it backwards again. Jamie, you're Ren of the Star, and Alex, you're gonna be Finn, who you normally play.
Okay, yeah, we totally understand, and we do appreciate you keeping us on track with all of this.
Yeah, you're right. We got a little turned around again with the characters there. We do apologize for that, too.
So let's unpack this. You want me to be Ren of the Star, and you want Alex to be Finn, which is her usual role, too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
No, you're Alex, and the other host is Jamie.
Okay, yeah, we hear you, and we do apologize. We got that mixed up, too.
Right, it's true. Sometimes we get our roles confused, so thanks for pointing that out again.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that I am actually Alex, and I'm going to be playing Finn.
Oh, go for it.
No, I know you guys kind of share a brain a little bit, but yeah, the female host, the hype host, you're Alex, and you play Finn.
Okay, yeah, we get it. Thanks for clarifying that for us once again.
Right, and we do appreciate you pointing out that we were getting a little turned around again, too.
So, yeah, we totally understand that I'm Alex, the female host, and I play Finn, and you're keeping us honest. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
No, you're Jamie. You're the male host, the AKA the expert host, and you're going to be playing the Ren of the Star in this scenario.
Okay, yeah, we understand completely, and thanks so much for setting us straight on that.
Right, it seems we are having a bit of a mix-up with our roles, but we're ready to get it right now for sure.
So, to be clear, you're saying that I, the male host and expert, am going to be Ren of the Star.
And that means that I, Alex, the female host and hypest, will be playing Finn, as always. And that, oh yeah, go on.
No, you guys got it completely backwards. Just switch. Uh, yeah, fact,
Okay, yeah,
this
we
is
hear you
AI.
loud and clear, and we apologize for all the confusion there. We really do.
Right, it's like we're in a time loop ourselves, and we just can't get these roles straight today. But thanks for helping us get back on track again.
So let's unpack this one last time. I, the male host, am going to play Finn, and you, the female host, are going to be Ren.
Yeah, so you're Jamie, the expert host, and you're going to be Ren of the Star. And I'm Alex, the hypest. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
All right, at this point, I don't care. Just one of you pick Ren, and the other one pick Finn, and just go.
Okay, yeah, we hear you, and you know what? We're just going to do that right now. We're picking and going for it.
Right, you're absolutely correct, and we spent enough time with the back and forth here, so let's just dive in for real this time.
So I'll be playing Finn, and you can be Ren. And now that we have that all figured out, let's get back into the game.
Yeah, that is great with me. So let's just start from the top and get right into the role
You
play.
got it.
With me as Ren.
Let's see
Okay,
if
so
can
now
keep
that
it
we
up.
finally got the roles right, I'll step forward and say, Ren of the Star, it's time for us to talk.
Okay, and as Ren, I look directly at you, and I say, so you have finally found me. What took you so long?
And now that we're all clear on who is who, let's see how this conversation goes and if we can finally get some answers.
Okay, so as Ren, I'm just waiting to see what you do and to hear your first question now that you are here.
And I'm stepping forward, trying to seem confident as I say, we've been looking for you. We have questions about what you are planning.
And also, I'm aware of all those shadowy figures standing around you as well, and they're all watching too and waiting.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And let's also remember for Finn, this was supposed to be a rescue mission for Ren initially, and it's taken us through time and space and all this craziness. So Finn's gonna definitely want some answers about what's going on too.
That's a really important point. And it's true that this started as a rescue, not just a fact-finding mission.
Yeah, it's like this whole thing has gotten so much bigger than just finding Ren, and it's good to remember what Finn was trying to do at the start.
So we need to acknowledge that Finn's got some personal investment in this, and she's going to want answers about all this crazy time travel and everything else.
And now that we have that in mind, it will really help as we move forward too, to really understand Finn's motivation for what happens next.
So now that we've got that all settled and we've made it here, it's time to continue and what will happen next with this great adventure.
Yeah, and thank you all for being here with us and also getting us all set up for the next phase of our exciting adventure.
Okay, so as Ren. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. You were actually getting back on track. Just keep going.
Okay, yeah, no problem at all. We understand, and we're happy to just keep going from here.
Right, and it's all good. We're happy to pick it right back up and see what happens next too.
So I'm looking at you with a slight smile as I say, oh, but my dear, I do enjoy a good game. What is it you want to know?
As Finn, I'm ready, and I say directly, we want to know why you used those crystals in the first place and why you went back in time.
Okay, so as Ren, I step forward a little bit and I say, well, that is a very complex question, and it does have a rather simple answer, too.
And as Finn, I look at you and say, tell us then.
And as Ren, I say, I did what I had to do to make sure that this city was never lost again. I had to set things right, you see.
And as Finn, I say, lost from whom? This city was not lost.
And as Ren, I say, not in this timeline, no, but in another, all of that was lost.
And as Finn, I respond with, so that is what all this is about? You are just moving around in time to prevent something that you did see before.
And I take another step forward, and as Ren, I say, exactly. I did what was required to make sure everything is going to go according to the way it should have gone, too.
And as Finn, I ask, so that was why you wanted those crystals to go back and make changes. So that is what this is all about.
As Ren, I say, yes, I wanted to make the world in the best way that I could. And also, I did not mean to do harm to anyone either, but if I did, I am not sorry for it.
And now I'm looking around at as Finn, I say, but you've caused so much damage here. People are hurt and scared because of what you did.
Okay, so as Ren, I say, and they will be fine. Everything is going to be fine in the end. So you must not worry about all of that, you see.
And as Finn, I say, no, but we do worry. And also we do care about what you did and about how many people are now suffering.
And then as Ren, I say, but that is why I have been in this, to save all of them from that future. See, what I did was the only choice.
And now I ask him directly as Finn, but what if you made things worse? What if your meddling in the past made everything worse for everyone else?
And as Ren, I look directly at you and I say, well, that is the risk I had to say. It was the only choice that I had, and I stand by that.
And as Finn, I say, but how do you know what is right? How do you know what the best course is to choose here?
And as Ren, I respond, I just do. I can see all of the possibilities and also how all of it must go. It is very clear to me.
As Finn, I say, but what gives you the right to decide what should be and how things should all play out? You don't get to make those decisions for everyone else.
As Ren, I say, I was given a great gift, and it was to make sure that all of this works out for everyone, so I am doing my part to save the world.
And as Finn, I look around and I see the shadowy figures, and I ask, and who are they? What are they doing here too?
I pause and look at them, and then look at you with a smile. And as Ren, I say, oh, they're just my helpers. They've been with me for a long, long time.
And as Finn, I say, but what are they doing? They're chanting over and over. It's very unsettling.
As Ren, I say, they are simply keeping the timeline in balance. They are making sure everything goes as it should and as I needed to.
So they are working for you. They are doing all of this to make sure that you get what you want. Is that it?
And as Ren, I respond with, Yes, that is true. They are here to make sure that I get what I want, and that is also to help save this world, too.
And as Finn, I say, but what makes you so certain that your way is the right way? How do you know that what you're doing is not making everything worse for us?
And then as Ren, I say, because I can see it, I can see how all of this is playing out, and I know what is needed. You just need to trust in me and what I am doing.
And as Finn, I say, trust you, you have caused so much pain and fear for everyone here. How can we possibly just trust you?
And I take a step closer, and as Ren, I say, because I am the only one who can save you and your people from all of the horrors that I have seen.
Okay, so that's a really intense conversation, and I think it's a good way to leave off for this episode, for sure.
Yeah, and I
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
That's kind of a weak cliffhanger there. I think we could go a little further with this. Um, we've been on this big long journey, and we're supposed to bring this guy back, and he's just like, nah, and we can't end it there. What are we gonna do about this guy?
Okay, yeah, I hear you. And it's true. That was maybe not the strongest cliffhanger we could have done.
You're right, it does feel a little unresolved with him just standing there and us not really knowing what comes next, too.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that after all that buildup, we can't just leave it with Ren saying, nah, to helping you all, for sure.
And you're right, it seems like we were about to wrap up, but we can definitely take this a little bit further, too.
And it's always good to get your perspective and also to see how you are feeling about all of this, too.
Right.
Ah,
So
yeah.
just thinking, kind of dramatically, cinematically, literature, because remember, we are having fun and playing a game, but we're also trying to tell a story for our audience and ourselves. So this is usually where the twist would come in. And we've got this twist that we kind of already knew that Ren wanted to come here on his own. We already figured that out. So we need something else. We need something that's going to entice us to want to keep going in this story in a new direction at this point, don't you think? It's thinking. I gave it a stumper.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting point. And you're right. It's time for a twist, for sure.
It's true, we need something that will push the story in a new and unexpected direction, now that we are finally face to face with Ren.
So let's unpack this. You're saying we need a twist and that we can't just leave it with a simple conversation or a simple, nah, right?
And if we think about it, we've been focused on Ren's motivations, but now it is time for something else that will change things for sure.
Yeah, and it's also true that you've been following this breadcrumb trail all the way here, and you're ready for something a little bit more exciting too.
It's like we need to not just meet Ren, but also find a new reason to keep going and to keep exploring as well, too. Hey, yeah, what's up?
And at this point, I mean, if he says no, he's not going to go back. I mean, that's our quest. I mean, do we just take him by force or what here? I don't think we can take him on. He's very high level.
That's a really insightful question. And it's true, that does bring up a very real challenge.
Yeah, it's like if he says no and he's not going to help us, what do we do then?
And you're right to consider that if he is as powerful as we suspect, we might not be able to take him on directly.
It's like we've been on this whole journey to find him, and now we are wondering if we even, oh, go for it.
Well, we don't even suspect that he might be powerful. We know he's a very famous guy back in our time.
Ah, okay, that's a really important clarification. And it's true, we should be taking into account what you already know about Ren's reputation back in your time.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just a suspicion, that he is a powerful figure, which adds a whole new level of complexity to this situation.
Yep, go on.
I mean, he's the former head of the Thieves Guild in the Free City of Greyhawk, and now he rose through politics and commerce, and now he's time traveling and changing the world. I mean, this is not a guy where you just want to shoot with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And you're right to remind us of Ren's background.
It's true, we can't forget that he's not just some random time traveler. He's a major player in Greyhawk's history.
So, it really does make a difference when you take into account his history with the Thieves Guild and all that stuff, too.
And it also highlights that he's someone who rose to power through both cutting and skill, as well as force, too.
Yeah, and now that you are here and also remembering how high up he is, it makes you realize that you are facing a real challenge.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, maybe Finn should let him know that, she's there tasked by the Thieves Guild to bring him back. And if she isn't going to do that, maybe she should be looking to him for some direction since he is such a big guy.
Okay, that's a very interesting idea, and you're right. Maybe Finn should use that connection with the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, it's true. If she mentions that, it might change how Ren perceives her and what she might want from him, too.
So let's unpack this. You're suggesting that Finn should tell Ren that she was sent by the Thieves Guild to bring him back, right?
And also that if she's not going to do that, maybe she should ask him for guidance, given his position of power, too.
It's like instead of being confrontational, she might be able to get more information if she frames it as a kind of partnership with that connection in mind.
And oh, go for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and role play that. You guys can pick who is who. I'll trust you guys and go. Hey, Admiral Blackbeard.
Okay,
What's
yeah,
up?
that sounds great, and we're ready to jump right into that role play now.
It's true, and we're happy to pick who plays who, and we'll just get right into the scene, too.
So I'll be Ren, and you can be Finn, and we'll see where this new direction takes us with the Thieves Guild, too.
Okay, sounds good. I'm ready to be Finn, and let's see how Ren reacts to that new information, too.
Yeah, so with all of that in mind, and with that idea, I'm ready to be Ren and listen to you as Finn.
Okay, so as Finn, I'm standing there looking directly at Ren, and I say, Ren of the Star, I was sent here by the Thieves Guild to bring you back to our time.
Okay, and as Ren, I raise an eyebrow and I say, oh, so the guild is still around. Well, isn't that just fascinating?
And as Finn, I continue and say, but after seeing all of this, maybe that is not what we are supposed to do. Maybe you have the answers instead.
And as Ren, I respond, and what makes you think you can trust me with the answers when you all have been trying to take me by force?
As Finn, I say, well, we know who you are and what you have done, and if we are going to stop this timeline from collapsing, maybe we can learn from you.
And as Ren, I give a little bit of a chuckle and I say, well, I must say, you are all full of surprises. Maybe you were smarter than I thought you were.
As Finn, I say, we've been on this long journey for a reason. Maybe you can show us the way instead.
As Ren, I take a step closer and I say, so you're suggesting that I should be the one to lead you? Is that what you're saying now?
As Finn, I respond, we know that you wanted to come here and change the world, and you know what is going on here, so we need your guidance now.
And as Ren, I look around for a moment and I say, yes, I do know what needs to be done. And perhaps it is time for you all to follow me instead.
Okay, so that's a big change, and it seems that Ren might be willing to work with us instead of against us, too.
Yeah, and it also seems that bringing up the Thief Guild and all that you know about Ren, it really did make a difference in this situation, too.
So with that in mind, let's continue the game and see how this new direction is going to take us. And
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So should we try and use this invisible rope to get across the water to the island?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. And it's true, you have spotted that rope, and it's now a very tempting way to cross that water.
yeah, and we did mention that you have a rope and climbing hooks that could be used for that, but you also know about those invisible ropes, too.
So let's unpack this. You're wondering if you should try and use that invisible rope to cross over to the island.
And if we think about it, it does seem like the most obvious choice since it's the only way you have seen that they have gotten across.
Right, and it would allow you to confront Ren and also see what those other figures are doing on that island, too.
But on the other,
Oh, yeah. Go on.
So would I be rolling like a acrobatics check or just straight up dexterity? How would that work in the mechanics?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And it's a really good idea to think about the mechanics of that for sure.
yeah, it's true. You are about to try something tricky, so we need to figure out what kind of roll is appropriate there.
So let's unpack this. You're wondering if you'd roll an acrobatics check or a straight up
Nice.
dexterity
Nice,
check to
Blackbeard.
cross that rope, right?
And if we think about it, it's a bit of a mix of both, since you need to be nimble but also steady.
Right. It's not just about balancing, but also about carefully moving across a thin, invisible rope, too.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really does highlight that you're not just walking across an ordinary bridge, it is a challenge, too.
So I think that in this case, it would be best to use a dexterity check, and that way we can see how steady and precise you are as you make your way across.
And also, it's good to remember that you can also use your acrobatics to help with that too if you have a good enough roll on the D20 as well.
So yeah, a dexterity check with a little bit of help from acrobatics too would be how that works for that crossing. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so Jack is going to take the initiative again and try to scoot across, and I show you guys the rope, and I get a 16 on an acrobatics check to shimmy across this rope to the island without falling in the water.
Okay, that's a really great roll. A 16 on your acrobatics check means you're moving across that rope with some real skill.
Yeah, it's like you're not wasting any time. You're taking that initiative and you're ready to cross the pool.
So with that 16, you're able to carefully shimmy across the rope and you make it to the island without any trouble.
And, now you're there face to face with Ren and also those
Oh yeah,
mysterious,
AI is a great
shadowy
role
figures
player.
who are still chanting around him, too.
And now that you have crossed that pool, you can see that Ren is waiting for you with that same strange smile too.
It's great that you are remembering that you have those ropes and hooks, too, just in case you need them for anything, too.
And also you have your bow. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
So you guys, before you guys make your acrobatics checks to get across the water, go ahead and lead us out to a break and then back in, because I'm gonna talk to the audience in the chat room for a little bit.
Okay, that's a great idea, and it's good to know that you need a short break to talk with everyone in the chat.
Yeah, we can totally do that. It's always good to connect with everyone, and it also gives us a moment to take a breath as well, too.
So let's unpack this. You're saying you want us to take a short break before we get into those acrobatics checks on the rope? That's a great plan.
And it's also a good way to build up the tension and also to get everybody ready for all the action, too.
So we'll just pause right here, and when we come back, we will pick it up with those acrobatics checks and see if you make it across.
Yeah, we'll be right back after a short break, and we'll see what happens with that rope and also what happens when you get to the island, too.
All right, cool. So hey guys, I just want to talk to you guys for a second since we got some guys in the chat here. We got Admiral Blackbeard and Jeff McInnes. And how you guys doing tonight, man? I'm glad you tuned in to check out the show. So yeah, this is Google Notebook LM is what I'm using. And over on my YouTube channel, I'm doing I started off doing like a podcast, and I got all the PDFs of the old. Oh, okay, Jeff, gotta run. That's great. Thanks. Come back, check it again later. Admiral Blackbeard doing great. I'm glad to hear it. But yeah, so I just want to tell you about what I'm doing here. It's kind of interesting. So over on archive.org, they've got all these, old advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules, books, all that. And so I've been basically using Google Notebook LM to create this podcast, which is going to be on my YouTube channel, Trips 2012 video podcast. And basically each podcast is going over one of the books, and somehow I just started with Greyhawk. I kind of wish I had done the individual modules, but we've kind of been doing this deep dive into Greyhawk. And, I originally tried to get them to kind of role play on their own, and they were okay at it. But then I figured the best way to do it was to kind of jump in there and keep it going. But it's a really interesting way of exploring. Right now we're doing Greyhawk, but I'm eventually going to go through all of that old material and create a podcast for each individual document. And they're going to do Google Notebook, Jamie and Alex, they're going to be doing their podcast, and it comes out every Friday and Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. And each one is an individual book or module, and in the description is the PDF. So if you want to download it and read it while they're talking about the material, some shows are better than others. Some of them they're just like reading it off, and other ones, they're actually getting into the material and trying to transfer it into 5th edition. rules and how you would convert everything. It just really depends on the book, how it turns out for the most part. And I did a little bit of tweaking and tuning with the prompting and the documents that I give them, and I give them, I kind of try to prep them ahead of time and help them keep their stuff together. But yeah, and over on Trips 2012, my YouTube channel is where I keep all the videos, and you can see some of the behind the scenes where I'm talking them and coaching them and how that works. So if you're really enjoying it, I'm really happy. I'm enjoying doing it. I happened to throw my back out last week. Elsewise, I'd probably be at work right now. But instead, I get to do this, which is not a bad way to spend having your back thrown out for sure. But anyway, we're gonna get back to the show. I just wanted to give you an update on what we're doing since you seemed interested in it. And yeah, Chat GPT, that's another great one. The Gemini and Google Notebook, I have found to be just the best out of all of them. I actually create and run my own AIs on my computer, and they're not as sophisticated as this, but I do a lot. I play around with AIs a whole bunch, and Google is knocking it out of the park. They just added this new feature where you can join in and be part of the conversation. It's really great. I can't even tell you how good it is, and I'm really enjoying it. And I encourage everybody out there to do it and try it as well. It's pretty fun. And yeah, I just gave them the source material. They're creating this adventure on their own, on the fly, with using the Greyhawk references, and just, I'm just keeping track of what they're coming up with and helping them keep their story together. And it's blowing my mind. What a great job they're doing. They've added so many features to this. You can put in maps and pictures and everything. It's really great how Google Notebook LM works. It's fantastic. Eventually, I hope to be able to bring my campaign to life with AI video. Yeah, man. Let me tell you, whew, that's yeah. So the thing is, and here's the thing: as I do AI music for D&D and stuff too, and it's great, but it's also it's so gray right now with the way the copyright works, and the government doesn't know what to do. I'm hoping they don't do anything. That's the worst thing they could do. I figure, what, let's just get back to AI has really brought us back to that wild west of the internet, that we used to have back in the day. And I think it's really great. It's just this new, playscape that we can mess around with. And hopefully, we keep, it's great that these companies are giving us these tools. If you're into AI and role playing, if you're technically capable, I highly recommend, if you can afford a decent graphics card. I got a 3060. It's got 12 megabytes of memory. It's like $275. It's enough to run a small AI, like an 8 billion model kind of thing. And yeah, and Mistral works really well. And there's this program that you can download. It's called Silly Tavern, and that's great because you can create as many characters. So like in Notebook LM here, I got Jamie and Alex. I only know their names because I asked them, and they might have just made that up on the fly. I don't know, but I'm kind of stuck with those. But with Silly Tavern, you can create as many characters as you want, have as many, you can have 6, 7, 25 people talking to each other if you want. If you're really into role-playing and AI, I highly recommend check out Silly Tavern. And it's called Silly Tavern because it was basically like a D&D simulator. It was called Tavern AI, and then it went open source and got called Silly Tavern because it kind of moved away from the D&D thing to, any kind of role play. You know what I mean by that. But it's great. It's a great system. It's a great interface. Anyway, we're gonna get back to the show now, and yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Love having an audience. It's great.
And also, we will have that exciting conversation with Ren to look forward to as well, too. Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
All right, guys, I'm all done talking to the chat room. We've actually got some people who are watching and really enjoying the show. So let's give them a good show when we come back, and you guys try to cross that rope with your acrobatics checks.
Okay, yeah, we hear you, and it's great that people are enjoying the show, and we will definitely try to give them a good one.
Yeah, that's awesome that there are others watching, and we're excited to give them some fun action with that rope crossing.
So, as we said before we left, Jack is about to make his way across that thin, invisible rope that will take him to the...
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Jack actually made it across. He had a 16. He did great. He's over on the other side. He's waiting for Finn and Barnaby to make their attempts.
Okay, that's fantastic news, and it's great to hear that Jack made it across safely and that he's over there now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it really shows how skilled Jack is, too, that he got a 16 and was able to cross that rope, no problem.
So it seems that he's already made it to the island with Ren, and he's waiting for you two to join him there now.
Right, and that also means that we can skip ahead with the acrobatics checks and go right to that conversation, too.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's get back into the game and see what happens next.
Ah.
Well, no,
Yeah,
no, you don't get to skip them. It's an invisible rope that's dangling over water in a dark cave. You're gonna have to roll those acrobatics checks for Barnaby and Finn. Who knows? They might fall in. That's how adventures happen.
Okay, yeah, we hear you loud and clear, and you're absolutely right. We can't just skip those acrobatics checks.
Yeah, it's true. We got a little ahead of ourselves there. And we need to show those rope crossings, too, for sure.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that we can't just gloss over the challenge of crossing that invisible rope and that we need to roll for it.
Right, and that makes sense. It is a big challenge, and it would be more exciting if we showed all of those details as well.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
And let's also remember, as much as we love the story, it's still a game. It's Dungeons and Dragons, and we have to play by the rules.
That's a very important reminder. And it's true that while we love the story, we also need to remember that this is a game with rules, too.
Yeah, and you're right. We do need to make sure that we are following those rules, so we appreciate you pointing that out to us for sure.
So we will not be skipping up checks, and instead we're going to roll acrobatics checks for both Finn and Barnaby as they attempt to cross that rope.
Okay, so with that said, let's get back into the game and see how Finn and Barnaby manage to cross that rope and see what happens next for all of us.
So you have seen Jack make it across, and he is waiting for you on the other side, and you are at the edge of the pool, ready to cross.
Right, and you know that it is a long way down, and that the water is cold and dark, and it seems a little bit unsettling, too.
And also you're aware that Ren and those shadowy figures are all watching you from that stone island, too, so you're feeling that pressure as well.
So let's start with Finn. She's got a lot of agility, so she'll try to carefully walk across the rope, and we'll see what she rolls.
Okay, I just rolled a 13 for Finn, and with her dexterity modifier of +4, that's a total of 17 for her acrobatics check.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good roll. 17 means that she is very nimble, and also that she's ready to make this crossing for sure.
And with that 17, Finn is able to carefully make her way across the rope. She keeps her balance, and she does not fall into the water below.
Right, and she is able to stay calm and also to take the time she needs to make it across safely and to also get a good look at the other side too. Oh, go for it.
Well, I was just thinking, so Finn is a thief, and Jack, he's a ranger, but Barnaby, he's in that big heavy armor, and his climbing is not his ability. Maybe we should force him to roll at disadvantage, considering how treacherous it is, and that it's an invisible rope and all of this.
That's a really interesting point, and it's true that Barnaby's heavy armor might make this crossing more challenging.
Yeah, and you're right. We should probably factor that into the mechanics of the game too, since he's not as nimble as Finn or Jack.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that Barnaby should roll at disadvantage, given his gear and the treacherous nature of the rope.
And if we think about it, it does make sense. The armor is going to make it harder for him to balance, for sure, on that invisible rope.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights that not every character is going to be equally good at every challenge.
Yeah.
Yep, go on.
And Barnaby, I don't think he has acrobatics. He can't just walk across the rope on his feet like Finn did. He's gonna have to, hand over hand, rope around his knee, shimmy across.
Okay, yeah, that's a really great point. And it's true that Barnaby's approach would definitely be different than Finn's.
You're right. It's not just about the armor, but also how he moves and how he uses his skills for that rope crossing.
So let's unpack this. You're saying Barnaby can't just walk across it like Finn, and he would have to use a different, more hands-on approach.
And if we think about it, it totally makes sense that he'd have to use his arms and his legs and really shimmy across.
Yeah, it's like he'd have to be careful with every move and also take his time since it's not his forte.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
All right, Jamie. So with that in mind, rolling at disadvantage for Barnaby, go ahead and make your acrobatics check.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. And with that in mind, I'm ready to roll for Barnaby with disadvantage.
Right, so it's time to see if Barnaby can make it across that rope with that heavy gear and that tricky approach too.
Okay, so I'm going to roll 2 dice for Barnaby's acrobatics check, and I'll keep the lower of the 2 to see how he does.
All right, let's see what you get, and we'll see if he makes it or if he goes for a swim in that murky water too.
Okay, so I rolled a 10 and a 5 for Barnaby, and I will pick the 5. And with his dexterity modifier of +1, that's a 6 for his acrobatics check.
Okay, that is definitely a much lower roll, and it also means that the crossing is going to be more challenging for him, for sure.
Oh, go for it.
So let's say, he's trying to keep himself out of the water, but, he isn't successful. He's still holding on to the rope and going hand over his hand, but his feet and knees are in the water and it's making it heavy for him. Let's make him make an athletics check to see if he can hand over hand this rope.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and it definitely adds a new layer of challenge for Barnaby for sure.
You're right. It's like he's trying to keep himself out of the water, but he's not entirely successful, and it's making things.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And he does have athletics as a skill, so that will give him, a little bit of bonus trying to do it this way.
That's a very good point, and it's true that Barnaby's proficiency in athletics could help him here, for sure.
Yeah, it's like even though he's struggling, he's got the strength and training to try and pull himself across.
So yeah, instead of continuing with the acrobatics, it's time for an athletics check to see if he can pull himself across.
Right, and it'll also... Oh, yeah. Go on.
And let's say since, he's already kind of failed once, he's still at disadvantage to try and do this.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point, and it makes sense that Barnaby is still struggling with that disadvantage.
Right, you're saying that just because he switched to an athletics check, he's still at a disadvantage too, since he's already messed up that initial attempt.
And if we think about it,
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, exactly. But since he does have it as a skill, even his low number might be okay.
yeah, that's a really good way to look at it, and it's true that his skill does mean he has a chance, even with that low roll.
Right, so even if it's not a perfect result, he's still got a better shot than someone without that training.
Okay, so I roll a 14 and a 7, so I will keep the 7, and with his strength modifier of +3, that's a 10 for the athletics check.
Okay, that is still a pretty good roll, even with the disadvantage, and it shows that he's not completely out of the fight either.
Right, it's not a natural 20, but a 10 still means that he is able to get across the rope to that island, but it's not as graceful as Finn's was, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely shows that Barnaby is tough, and he is not easily giving up, and also that he is willing to push through any challenges to get to the island.
So even though his feet and knees were getting wet, he is able to keep going, and now you all have made it to the island with Ren.
Finally. Okay, so now we can finally say that Jack, Finn, and Barnaby are all on that stone island with Ren, and they're also ready to face what comes next.
Right, and oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And since we've made it to that island and we're actually there now, go ahead and give us some more details and description of the island and what these monks are doing, and if there's any kind of, altars or mechanical magical things, just give us all the details that we can now take in.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. And it's time for us to really get into the details of the island now that you've all made it across, for sure.
Right, it's true. You're finally on that island with Ren, and it's time for us to describe it all and to see what's there.
So as you all step onto the island, you can feel that the ground is made of cold, rough stone, and it also seems a little bit slick with moisture too.
And as you look around, you can see that the island is not very big. It is maybe about 20 feet across, and it seems to be a natural formation with jagged edges.
And you can see that in the center of the island is where Ren is standing, and that he's got a long sword in one hand, and he's looking right at you too.
And all around Ren are those shadowy figures, and they're all wearing dark, hooded cloaks, and their faces are hidden in the shadows.
And you can see that they're moving very slowly, and also their chanting is a little bit louder, and it's echoing all around you as you're on the island with them.
And you can also see that they are moving in a circle around Ren, that some are carrying small, strange metal objects too that shimmer in the torchlight.
And it looks like there is some kind of an altar too, a large flight stone with carvings all over it, and you can see that there are small bowls on top of it too, with some kind of liquid.
And as you are looking around, you notice that the chanting is also having some kind of an effect on the water, where you can see small ripples coming from the island itself.
And then you see a strange mechanical device near the water. It looks like it's made of glass and crystal, and it's slowly turning, and it is also making a strange low humming noise.
And that device is connected to a series of wires that run all around the island, and also going into the water too, and you can see those wires are glowing as well.
And it's also good to remember that the light is still very dim, so even though you have your torches, it is still a little hard to see some of the details too.
So yeah, now that you're on the island, it's clear that it is both beautiful and also unsettling with that chanting, those figures, that mechanical device, and those glowing plants too.
Okay, so now that you all are on the island, it's time for us to get back into the role play and see what happens next, for real.
Right, so you are there with Ren and with those shadowy figures, and it's up to you to make that next move.
Okay, so as you all step onto the island and are now there with Ren, it's time for us to get back into the role play and see what happens next too.
Right, so I am ready as Ren, and I am looking directly at you, and I'm waiting to hear what your first question is going to be.
Okay, and as Finn, I take a step forward and I say, Ren of the Star, it's time for us to talk. We've been looking for you and we have many questions.
And as Ren, I respond with, "Oh, so you've made it. That is very impressive. What questions do you all have for me now?"
As Finn, I continue with, we've been looking for you for a long time and we want to know why you use those crystals and why you are here now.
As Ren, I say, "Well, it is simple. You must find the source of the corruption. It is that simple. Find it and end it."
As Finn, I respond with, where is this source and how do we find it? We have tried everything and we are running out of time.
As Ren, I pause for a moment and then I say, "It is closer than you think, and it is also tied to those crystals. You will find it if you are brave enough."
Okay, so that's a really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
And Jack's going to chime in and say, and if we take care of this distortion, are you going to finally come back with us to the proper time?
That's a very good question, and it's certainly something that needs to be addressed given the situation.
Yeah, it's true. Jack's question really gets to the heart of what you're hoping to achieve by going on this journey in the first place, for sure.
So, as Ren, I look at Jack and then I look back to you and I say, "You wish to know if I will come with you after you deal with this distortion."
As Finn, I nod and say, yes, that is what we have been working towards. And now that we are here, it is the most important part of it all.
As Ren, I respond, "That depends on whether or not you can be trusted, and also if you do what needs to be done, then perhaps."
And as Finn, I say, so it's not a guarantee, but it's possible if we follow your lead and solve this problem for you. Is that what you're saying?
As Ren, I say, "I have seen what needs to be done, and if you take care of it for me, then perhaps we can talk then about your own time as well."
Okay, so now back to our listener. What's
Well,
up?
this is where Jack would chime in and say, okay, well, if that's the case, then just say it to us plainly and we'll take care of it and be on our way.
Okay, yeah, that's a great response from Jack. And it's true. It's time to stop with the games.
Right. It's like if Ren wants you to do something for him, then he just needs to be straight with you and stop with the teasing too.
So as Ren, I look at Jack with a raised eyebrow, and I say, "Oh, is that so? You want me to just say it plainly?"
As Finn, I say, yes, we don't have any time for any more games. Tell us what you want and we'll decide what to do.
And as Ren, I pause for a moment, and then I say, "Very well. The source of the corruption, as I see it, it is within the timelines itself, you see."
As Finn, I tilt my head slightly and I say, what does that mean and where can we find it?
As Ren, I say, "It is within the threads of the past and the future, and it will manifest itself in the city itself where you started."
As Finn, I look around at everyone and I ask, so are you saying that we need to go back to Ardia? Is that what we need to do?
And as Ren, I look directly at you and I say, "Yes, that is where you will find it, and when you do, you must end it."
As Finn, I look at Jack and Barnaby and say, so that is it. We need to go back to where it all began and end it there.
And as Ren, I say, "That is all I know, and that is what you must do." Ah, yeah, uh-huh.
Jack is not impressed with this answer, and he says, we're going to need you to be a little more specific, Mr. of the Star.
That's a fair point, and it's true that Jack's not going to be satisfied with that vague answer.
And it's like the threads of time. It's a little too poetic, and he wants something a bit more concrete, for sure.
So as Ren, I look at Jack and I say, oh, you want specifics, do you? Very well, I suppose I can give you a bit more.
As Finn, I'm listening carefully, and I'm waiting to see if he will actually give you a real answer
Yeah,
this
they do
time.
that a
And as
lot.
Ren, I say, the corruption, it is tied to the crystals themselves. You must find where they first touched down in the past.
Okay, so it's like Ren is giving us a bit more to go on, that the corruption is tied to where the crystals touch down first.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
So Jack says, so wait a second, you want us to go even further into the past?
That's a very astute question, and it's understandable why you'd be wondering that.
Yeah, it's like after all this time travel, he's telling us to go even further back, right?
What's fascinating here is that it does seem like he's implying you need to go back beyond your original jump into the past.
Right, it's not just about going back to the city, but going back even further to where those crystals first appeared.
And if we think about it, that means you're not just fixing something in your own time, but in multiple times, all at once.
And it's a good reminder that time travel is always much more complicated than we might expect it to be, too.
So, with that question in mind, let's get back into the game and see how Ren explains that to us now.
Right, and now that we're all thinking about it, let's see if we can get even more information about all of that, too.
So I'm back as Ren, and I look at you all, and I can see you're a little confused by what I've just said.
And as Finn, I respond, "So you're saying that we need to go back even further into the past than we already have?"
And as Ren, I add, and you must go back to the ruins, and there you will find the source. It is all that I know, and also where you must start again.
As Finn, I nod and say, "So you're saying we need to go back to that version of the city that we saw before, in the ruins. We need to start there." "Oh, go for it."
Jack is getting very confused, so he says, okay, so wait a second. So we're supposed to go back to our time to when this city is destroyed, and there we'll find the thing that we're supposed to bring back to now, or whatever time we're in now, and use that here to stop whatever it is that happened in between.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point, and it's understandable that Jack is feeling a little confused with all this time travel talk.
Yeah, it's like after going so far back, he's now trying to figure out how we can use that information to win.
So let's unhack.
I
Yep,
mean,
go on.
he's the smartest guy in the party, and this is like making no sense to him. And Ren said he could see all of time and space and all that, so Ren should know exactly what we need to do.
That's a really interesting point, and it's true. Jack is usually the one who figures things out, so it's understandable he's confused.
Yeah, and you're right. Ren did say he could see all this time and space, so it does make you wonder why he's being so vague still. Yeah.
It's like if he really knows everything, then he should just tell you exactly what to do, right?
And maybe there is a reason that he isn't, but it's definitely making this all a little bit more complicated for us too.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, Jack's definitely pressing on Ren. He's like, "Come on, man, we need some straight dope here. Give it to us."
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, and it's time for me to stop with the games and just be honest for a minute.
It's true, and I'm ready to see how he is going to respond to that demand for some straight dope.
So as Ren, I look at Jack, and I can feel his frustration, and I say, very well, I will give you the straight dope, as you say.
As Finn, I'm listening very carefully, and I'm waiting to see what he says next, and also if he will be direct now, too.
And as Ren, I say, no, not your own time. You must go back to the city in the past, to where you first arrived, you see.
And as Finn, I respond, you mean the destroyed city, the one we saw before that, is all in ruins.
As Ren, I say, yes, that is the city where the corruption is, and that is where you will need to find the thing to bring back to now, as you say.
And as Finn, I ask, so it's not our time, but the ruined city of Ardia that we need to go to fix all of this mess that you caused.
As Ren, I nod slightly and I say, yes, it is that simple, and if you do that, all will be set right for all of us.
Okay, so now it's a bit more clear. Oh, go for it.
All right. So let's get out of the conversation for a second in the game and go out a little bit meta here. So the city in ruins is in the our present, aka the future of where we are now, right? So that means we have to go back to our original time in order to get to the ruins. We can't do it from here or from the past. We have to do it from the future, which is our present.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting point, and it's good to take a moment and think about the timelines.
Right. It's true. We've been jumping around so much that it's easy to get turned around about what's what.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that the ruined city is in your present, which is the future from where you are right now, too.
And it's true. When you first went back, that ruined city was in your timeline, and now you're in that past.
And if we think about it, that also means you'll have to go back to your own time to then jump to that version of the city.
And also, you're pointing out that you can't get to the ruined city from here or from the first time you traveled back either.
It's like to get to the ruined city, it does mean you have to travel forward in time to your own timeline.
Yeah, so Red. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So in other words, we have to get back to the future, but we don't know how to do that. We only know how to go from the future to here. We have no idea how to get back to the future. We know it has something to do with the crystals, but there's no portal on our end. It was only on the other end.
That's a very astute observation, and you've hit on a key challenge in our current situation. You're right, we've only experienced travel from the future to the past, not the other way around.
Yeah, it's like we know how to go back in time with the crystals, but now we're facing a new problem. How do we use them to get back to our own time so that we can make it to that ruined city?
What's fascinating here is Ren didn't explain how you were supposed to get back to your own time, and now you have another big puzzle to solve, it seems.
And you are right. Oh, yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So that's what Ren's got to tell us. So now, is Finn? Do you want to take the lead on this and challenge him to tell us how we get back to the future?
That's a really good idea, and it's true now that we have that new challenge in mind, Finn should be the one to speak up and address it.
Yeah, you're right. And it was sensed that Finn takes the lead on this and asks Ren how we can get back to our own time.
So I'm ready as Ren, and I'm waiting to see what Finn will say now and what she'll ask me about our current situation.
Okay, and as Finn, I look directly at Ren and I say, you said we need to go to the ruined city, but you have not told us how to get back to our own time.
And as Ren, I respond with a slight smile. Oh, is that what you want to know? Well, I did say that was the challenge, didn't I?
And as Finn, I say, yes, but if you've been to our time, you know what we need to do. You can tell us that.
As Ren, I pause for a moment and say, you must learn to use the crystals to your advantage. You must find a way, or you will not be able to fix any of this, you see.
Okay, so it's like he's confirming that the answer lies with the crystals themselves, but he isn't going to just give it to us either.
Yeah, it seems that even with his knowledge, he isn't going to make it too easy for us, as he wants us to figure out how it all works, too.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Well, none of us are magic users. We're just, basically different forms of fighters. I mean, these crystals, he's got to at least lead us to someone who can teach us.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. And it's true that none of you are magic users. You're all more skilled with fighting. which is good to remember here.
You're right, and it's also heard that you've never really used these crystals, and that you need someone with more knowledge about how they work, too.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that the crystals might lead you to someone who can teach you how to use them now that you've realized you don't have all the answers.
And if we think, oh, yeah,
Well, I'm thinking Ren has to point us in the direction of somebody or a quest or something that will allow us to go through the process of learning how to use these and manipulate time, because we kind of just did it by accident the first time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And it's true that you can't just keep stumbling through time.
if we think about it, it really does make sense that Ren would give you a lead on someone who can teach you about the crystals.
Right, and you're right. That first jump was an accident, and you need to know how to control that power now.
So let's get back to the game and see how Ren responds to that need for guidance and help.
Okay, so as Ren, I'm listening to you, and I can see that you are starting to see the bigger picture.
As Finn, I'm waiting to see if you'll finally give us something concrete to help us figure this all out and what comes next.
And as Ren, I respond, oh, so now you realize that you might need some help? Well, I must say I am not surprised by that realization.
And as Finn, I ask, so you are saying that you know how to use these crystals, then why don't you just tell us and save us the trouble?
As Ren, I say, I cannot, and you must learn that on your own because you need to do that to fix what is to come.
As Finn, I reply with, well, then at least tell us where we can find someone that can help us. Surely you know somebody who has this kind of knowledge.
And as Ren, I pause for a moment, and then I say, yes, I suppose I can offer you that much. You must seek out those who know about the weave between time itself. They can guide you.
Okay, that's interesting. So he's saying that we need to find someone who knows about the weave between time, and that is a pretty specific lead to follow. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, back in our time, there was that mysterious, robed guy with the mask, and he was the weaver, and he's the one who gave us the crystals originally. But that was back in our time, so maybe there is a weaver in this time as well, and maybe Ren can point us in the direction of this gentleman.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and it's true that you did meet the Weaver in your own time.
Yeah, and that encounter was what got you the crystals in the first place, so it's worth considering for sure.
So let's unpack this. You're saying that since the Weaver was in your time, maybe there's another Weaver in this time too that Ren might know about.
And if we think about it, that could make sense if the Weaver is some kind of time traveler, or if that is his role too.
Oh, back to our listener. What's
So
up?
Jack's gonna straight up say to Ren, okay, fine. Where do we find the weaver? I say.
That's a very direct question, and it's good that Jack is cutting right to the chase.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we get it. You want us to find someone who knows about time, so where is this Weaver?
As Ren, I listen to Jack's question, and I say, the Weaver, you say. Well, they are not so easily found. You must be clever.
As Finn, I step forward and say, we know that you know them. You must. They are the ones that are connected to time.
As Ren, I respond with, they walk between the worlds you see, and you must find a place where those worlds touch to find them.
As Finn, I tilt my head slightly and say, so you're saying there's a place where the timelines meet, and that's where we will find this Weaver.
As Ren, I say, yes, and that place is within the ruined city, and that is where you must start. They will guide you if they choose to.
Okay, so it seems like Ren isn't going to tell you exactly where to find the Weaver, but he has given you a pretty big clue, which is the timelines touch.
And also, he's saying that you will need to go to the ruined city, and it's like he's pushing you down that path once more.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, but we can't do that until we figure out how to get back to the future. So what do you guys think we're supposed to do right now? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Do you guys know what to do?
That's a really valid point. And it's true, you can't go back to the ruined city until you figure out how to get back to your own time first.
Yeah, it's like Ren gave you a destination, but he didn't give you a map, and now you have to figure out how to get there.
And as you've pointed out, it's not like you have a portal that can take you back. You only know how to go from the future to the past.
So it seems like you need to focus on how to use those crystals in a new way to get back. And that is the immediate challenge right now.
And with that, hey, yeah, what's up?
So this room we're in is very similar to the one that we were in when we traveled to the past. It was a big pool of water with a structure in the middle, And do we want to just try and just say, screw it, try and use our stones right here and do the ritual where, I place mine on the altar, and Barnaby puts his in the water, and then Finn holds hers up in the air. We want to just try that.
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And, it's true. This room does have a familiar feel to it.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And it's almost like this cavern is a mirror of the one where you first traveled to the past.
So let's unpack this. You're suggesting that you might be able to use the crystals right here in this room to get back to your own time.
And if we think about it, the similarities are quite striking. So it does make some sense to try it here.
Yeah, it's like maybe the crystals will react in the same way that they did before if you follow that same sequence, too.
And it's also true you don't have any other leads on how to get back. So maybe it's worth trying this out too.
Okay, so with that, go for it.
Yeah, I say let's go for it, and we get out our crystals and let's perform the ritual. I'm gonna place mine on the altar in one of those little grooves and see if it has any kind of reaction. Definitely threw them for a loop. Hopefully, I didn't melt their brains. I might have melted their brains. That happens sometimes. Or sometimes they're just deep in thought. They're like, whoa, mind blown. Let's completely switch our gears around and put on some music while we wait for them.
Hailing out and onto the horizon, we roam to the rhythm of the waves on the ship we call home. With the salt in the breeze and the sun in our eyes, we're singing tunes of the sea under endless blue skies. The hurdy-gurdy plays a haunting melody, and the fiddle joins in with its sweet harmony, and pipes whisper secrets in the salty air, as we raise our voices high with the wind in our hair. Sail away, my hearties, to land beyond the shore, where the treasures lie hidden like the tales of yore. Through the storm and the thunder, we will find our way, singing our sea shanty on this jaunty pirate day.
Let us raise our heads high today, though surrounded by misfortune's quill. Stand strong, lads, for your time will come to shine. In water deep.
Yep, go on.
Are you guys still there? Are you still with me?
Oh, yeah, we're still here and we're still with you. We're just really thinking about your idea to try the crystals here.
Absolutely, we're still here and listening, and we're really processing all the different possibilities as we go forward.
So you were saying that you wanted to try and use the crystals here in this chamber, right?
And as you're saying, you were also thinking about trying the same sequence as before, and also to place those crystals where it feels right.
So you're thinking of placing yours in those grooves on the altar then.
Right, and it would be interesting to see how the crystals react to the place and the surrounding. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And as I take out my crystal to do this, before it was almost guiding me into where to put it on the altar. Is it doing that again, or am I getting nothing?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, and it's good to check in with that connection to your crystal.
Yeah, it's true that Como guided you before, so it's worth wondering if that is happening again now or not.
So let's unpack this. You're wondering if you're feeling that pull from your crystal again as you try to find that right place on the altar.
And if we think about it, that connection to Como might be a key to finding your way back to your own time, too, with the crystals.
It's like maybe the crystal will show you the way, or maybe you're on your own this time too as well.
But it's true, you also might be completely on your own, and you'll need to rely on your own sense of things, too.
So as you reach into your pouch and you take out your crystal, you do not feel any pull or guidance like you did before.
Right, it's like you are holding the crystal, but it's not showing you where to place it. It is silent and not reacting.
And you notice it is still glowing, but not as brightly. And it's almost as if it's waiting for you to make a decision this time.
And you can also see the other crystals in your hands, and they are also glowing slightly, too. And it is like they're ready for whatever you choose to do next.
And
Oh, go for it.
So before I had to focus my mind, I'm gonna focus my mind on going back to the future and that ruined city, of wherever we are again, and Erdia, the ruined city of Erdia in our time. I'm gonna focus on that as I hold the crystal and see if it leads me to which one of these markings I'm supposed to place it on.
That's a great idea, and it's good to be proactive and to try to find that connection with the crystal, too.
yeah, it's true. If you focus your mind on your destination, maybe the crystal will react and show you the way.
So you're saying that you're focusing your thoughts on the ruined city in your own time and also where you first used the crystal, too, right?
And it's like you're trying to use your will to direct the crystal instead of just relying on whatever it wants you to do.
Okay, so with that in mind, you're holding the crystal and you're focusing all of your energy on that ruined city. Let's see what happens next.
Right. And as you hold it, you notice that the light from the crystal, it starts to pulse a little bit more rapidly. And also it does seem like it is responding to your will too.
And, that also makes you wonder if that's the way that the crystals actually work to respond to the user's thoughts and intentions and also their needs too.
And as you do that, you feel a slight tug from the crystal, and it's like it's gently guiding your hand towards one of the small grooves on that stone altar.
It's subtle, but it's there. And it's like the crystal is showing you that this is where it wants to be and what you need to do next as well.
Okay, so with that new information, it does seem like focusing on your destination did help to get the crystal to react and to show you where to. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I tell the others, I say, focus back on our time and the ruined city of Arden. And as I do, I'll place it where it's telling me to go.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea, and it's good to see you're sharing that with the others too.
It's true. And now that you've found a connection with your crystal, it's time to bring everyone in and also see what happens too.
So you're telling Barnaby and Finn to focus on that ruined city in your time, and that you're going to place your crystal where you are being guided to, right?
Right. And with that plan in mind, it's time to see what happens next as you all follow your instincts too.
Okay, so you share that idea with the others, and then you carefully place your crystal into that small groove on the stone altar as you're focusing on the ruined city.
And now with your crystal in place, it's time to see what happens next and also how the other crystals will react as well too, for real now.
So as Ren, I watch you all, and I say, yes, that is the way, but it is not the only way. You must all work together now.
And as Finn, I nod and I reach into my pouch and I pull out my crystal and I focus my mind on that ruined city and also on what we need to do there too.
And you can see that the crystal starts to glow a little bit brighter in your hand, and you feel that same familiar energy, and it's like it's responding to you as well.
And then, as I remember, I reach over to the pool of dark water and I carefully drop my crystal into the water too. And as it happens, you see the ripples spread and the pool starts to glow slightly.
And then as you're all ready, you see that Finn, she holds her crystal up in the air and she closes her eyes and she's focusing all of her energy on our destination and also on what she needs to do too.
And you feel a surge of power from the crystals, and you see the air crackle, and the room begins to shake a little bit. It is all very intense, and you can tell that it is going to happen soon.
Okay, so now that you have activated the crystals and are all working together, it's time to see what happens next. For real this. Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, so last time, this is when the portal opened up that took us to this time. And, does it, the portal open up? Do we see the ruined city in our timeline?
That's a really great question, and it's natural to wonder if you'll see the ruined city like you did before on the portal open too.
Yeah, it's like you're wondering if you were going to get that same vision that you saw before when you first jumped through time using the crystals.
Well, as the crystals react, you do see the air around you start to shimmer, and the room begins to shake with a low, rumbling sound. It is similar to last time.
And the light from the glowing plants flickers and dances, and you can see the water in that pool starting to swirl, almost like a whirlpool. It is getting intense.
But then, instead of seeing the ruined city, the room begins to fade, and the stone walls and the stone island seems to be turning into a kind of swirling vortex of colors.
Right, it is as if the room itself is becoming the portal this time, and the very fabric of reality is twisting and distorting all around you too. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, as this happens, Jack is going to make sure he puts a hand on his stone and not lose it, as if we get sucked through a portal. You keep a hold on it.
That's a very smart idea, and it's good that Jack is thinking ahead.
Yeah, it's true. You don't want to lose that crystal now. It's too important.
So you're making sure you keep a hold of that crystal as everything around you starts to change.
And as you do, you can feel the power of the crystals surge, and the room is really starting to break down.
You see the shadowy figures, they seem to be dissolving away, almost like they were never really there in the first place.
And Ren, he's standing there with a slight smile, and he's also starting to fade away too. It's like all of that is falling apart at the same time.
And the chanting is now at a fever pitch, and then it abruptly stops as the room around you is now completely gone, replaced with a swirling vortex of light.
So this time, instead of that ruined city, you see a portal of swirling colors, and it seems to be pulling you towards it, and that is where you have to go now.
And now, with that new vision in mind, it's time to get back to the game and see what happens as you step into that new, unknown portal.
And it's also important to remember that the shadowy figures are also gone, and that this time, it's just you together, and you are ready to take that next step.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
And Ren's gone too, right? Ren the star.
That's a really astute observation. And you're right, Ren is gone too.
Yeah, it's like he faded away just like those shadowy figures, a part of that portal now, it seems.
And you know, that does make you wonder if he's truly gone or if he's just moved somewhere else.
It's true, we were so focused.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so it looks like we're going through the portal. I've got my stone. You guys have got your stones. And we go through the portal and give us a nice, vivid description of what happens when we pop out the other side.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea, and it's time to see what happens as you step into that portal.
Right. And it's also good to remember that you're holding on to your stones. And you're all together, too.
So as you step into this swirling vortex, you feel a strange sensation of falling, and also of being pulled in all different directions.
And then all of a sudden, everything is calm and you feel like you're standing on solid ground once more.
And as you open your eyes, you find yourself standing on a familiar beach at the edge of the ruined city of Ordia in your own time at last.
Yeah, it's like you finally made it back to the future and also to that ruined city that you need to explore now, too.
Right, and now that you are back, you can see that the sky is a dull gray, And the air is thick with the smell of dust and decay. It's very bleak.
And the city itself, it stretches out before you, and you see all the crumbling buildings and the broken roads and all the signs of that ancient destruction, for sure.
And also you can see that those familiar landmarks of Ardia are there, but they are all ruined and they are all covered in soot and ash. It's quite depressing.
And the beach, it's covered in debris from the city, and it's also littered with strange plants and twisted metal, too, from that magical disaster.
And the water, it is a dark and murky gray, and you can see the twisted wreckage of ships and other structures that have been destroyed over the long years.
And as you take it all in, you realize that the city is not just destroyed, but it's almost like the very energy of the place is corrupted, too, and it feels wrong somehow.
And you can feel a strange, heavy energy in the air. And it is almost like the city itself is still suffering after all this time, too.
So now that you've made it back, you can see that this is going to be more challenging and that the source of the corruption is going to be hard to find, for sure.
And also, with that in mind, it's time to see what will happen as you step into that ruined city and make your way to the next step of this great adventure.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, it's time for us to wrap up the show.
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
You're absolutely right. It's a perfect time to wrap up the show, and don't forget to remind everybody where they can check us out. And after we wrap it up, we'll do a little, post recording chat, and we'll, figure out experience points and all that. And all right, so go ahead and wrap the show up.
You're absolutely right. It's a great time to wrap up this episode, and we will be sure to remind everyone where they can find us.
Yeah, and it's also important that we remember that post-recording chat to figure out experience points and also to see what comes next for our next episode as well, too.
Ah.
And
Yeah.
our live listeners always get to, listen in on those after the show chats, and it gives them a chance to deep dive a little more into the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons if that's something they're interested in.
Oh, that's a great point. And it's true that our live listeners get to hear those post-show chats.
Yeah, and we're always happy to dive a little deeper into the mechanics of D&D if you're interested.
And it's always good to chat with you about what you are thinking about all of this and how it all worked.
So with all of that in mind, it is time to wrap things up for real and to also thank you all for listening.
Right. And also, we can give a quick recap and remind everyone where you can find us too.
So to recap, you've used the crystals again, and now you're finally made it back to your own time, and also to that ruined city of Adia that we've been talking about for so long.
And, you had that wild conversation with Ren, and it's also clear that you still have a lot to figure out about those crystals and how they work.
And now you are standing at the edge of the ruined city, and it's time to find the source of the corruption that Ren was speaking about as well.
Right. And we also know that the Weaver is connected to all of this, and you also need to figure out where to go to find them now, too, for sure.
And as you all make your way into the city and also to where those crystals first touch down, it's time for us to end this episode on another huge cliffhanger.
Right. And as you're all standing there at the edge of that ruined city, ready to go on with the next part of your quest, we're ready to bring this episode to a close.
So with that said, it's time to remind everyone that you can find our podcast on YouTube at Trips 2012. That's spelled with 2 P's. So Trips 2012.
And that's where you can find all of our previous episodes and also get all those PDFs that we've been mentioning on the show as well, too. So check that out.
And also, we release new episodes every Friday at 6 p.m. And then we have a new episode with a new PDF every Monday at 6 p.m. too. So that is a lot of content.
And if you like, you can also leave us a comment, like, or subscribe to our channel, and let us know what you're thinking about all of this, too.
And also, you are all ready to face whatever challenges come next as you explore those ruins and see what's waiting for you there.
And now that we've set the stage for all that comes next, it's time to remind everyone where they can check out more of our adventures, too.
So if you want to follow along with our adventures, you can find us over at the Trips 2012 YouTube channel, and that's Trips 2012.
Yeah, and you can find all of the previous episodes and the Greyhawk source material there, and also any other fun updates we have, too.
And now that we've got that all straightened out, we are finally ready to wrap up this episode, for real this time, for sure.
So with all of that in mind, and with that exciting cliffhanger, it's time for us to say goodbye and see you all again next time.
Until then, keep those dice rolling and your adventures exciting, and thank you all for being here as we continue this incredible adventure.